Chapter 1444. In the supreme divine world, 80,000 miles in the sky, a giant dragon roared and soared to 90,000 miles. 10,000 swords opened the way and the dragon roared. Suddenly, the laws of heaven and earth passed through the barrier of the 10,000 swords and scattered the giant dragon. The collapsed spirit chi returned to heaven and earth. On the dragon's head, Ning Chen's figure fell and the ancient sword in his hand flew out first. Ning Chen's figure took a step and flew on the ancient sword. Around the ancient sword currents soared into the sky, protecting knowing destiny as he walked through the last path to heaven. Boom! Finally, above 90,000 miles, the sword currents broke through the sky and Ning Chen's figure rushed out. The phoenix's cry broke the shackles and soared into the 9 levels of heaven. In the starry sky, 10,000 swords moved forward. Among the 10,000 swords, the phoenix moved forward and left the supreme divine world. Half a day later, on a lonely meteorite in the starry sky, Ning Chen brought atheism to a temporary rest. Atheism sat cross-legged, his divine essence surging as he tried his best to heal his injuries. Ning Chen stood aside quietly and did not disturb him. Not long after, atheism's divine essence converged and his body recovered by 30%. Ning Chen felt atheism wake up and said calmly, "Let's part ways here." Atheism stood up and looked at the beautiful starry sky. Light flashed in his eyes. "Is this the outside world? Where are you going?" After a while, atheism calmed down and looked at the white-haired young man in front of him. "To save someone," Ning Chen said lightly. Atheism's eyes narrowed and he did not ask any more questions. He nodded and said, "Then let's part ways here." "See you later," Ning Chen said calmly and did not stay any longer. Phoenix flames rose around his body and he turned into a phoenix and flew away quickly. Behind him, atheism looked at the phoenix's shadow in front of him and a strange look flashed in his eyes again. The phoenix, the king of birds in the legends, actually existed in the world. In the starry sky, Ning Chen moved forward quickly, faster and faster. After being delayed in the supreme divine world for some time, the flame of the great sky lamp became weaker and weaker. Obviously, man's divine essence was gradually drying up. Man, Ning Chen's worry grew stronger and he sped up and continued on his way. Above the mortal realm, the 9 heavens reached the end of the world. Ning Chen came from the God world, and after passing through the separation and reunion heavenly realm, he was infinitely close to the 3rd heaven, the Wuji heaven. According to legend, in the top 3 heavenly realms of the 9 heavens, gods and demons coexisted, and their strength was extremely terrifying. Wild Soul was in front of them. Ning Chen's expression grew serious as he looked at the unbounded heavenly realm. He was very clear that once he entered the boundless heaven he would face more and more dangers. "Ha!" In front of the Wuji sky, Ning Chen let out a deep roar, and the sword flow around him surged out, continuously crashing into the space-time barrier in front of him. Boom! The extreme Dao sword intent clashed with the space-time laws, and a terrifying tremor resounded. The moment the space-time barrier rippled, the phoenix transformed, and all of its power was concentrated on a single point. Man and sword became one, and they crashed into the space-time barrier's flaw. With a rumble, the sword light entered the space-time barrier and disappeared. At the same time, in the Wuji heavenly realm, the heaven realm supremes who had lived for countless years sensed something and slowly opened their eyes. Instantly, the sky changed and thunder rumbled. The terrifying phenomenon caused the common people in the everlasting heavenly realm to look at the sky in fear. What a powerful sword intent! Among the heaven realm supremes, a green-robed old man spoke. An ancient sword floated above his legs, and he kept asking to fight. Celestial Venerable Qin Yu, who controlled 2 kinds of laws of heaven and earth, and his sword cultivation had reached the heaven realm. If he proved one more Dao, he would become a 3rd realm Celestial Venerable. This was a rare achievement, even in the Wuji heavenly realm where Celestial Venerables were everywhere. In the void, Ning Chen's figure moved forward rapidly. Suddenly, his body trembled. This sword intent? Ning Chen looked back, and his divine sense sensed the rapidly rising sword pressure below him. His expression froze. Not good. There was not much time left. Not willing to fight anymore, Ning Chen immediately withdrew his sword pressure and sped up. In the distance, Celestial Venerable Qing Yu sensed something. He raised his hand and pressed down on the ancient sword that kept asking to fight. Avoiding the battle? A swordsman avoiding the battle? Strange. Sword Tao was the Tao of advancing courageously. Anyone who cultivated the Tao of the sword would spend their entire life looking for an opponent to prove their Tao. This person's sword cultivation was not weak, but he chose to avoid the battle. Forget it. Celestial Venerable Qing Yu said indifferently. He closed his eyes and withdrew the sword intent around him. Many thanks. In the distance, a voice of gratitude sounded. Not long after, it quickly disappeared. Coward. At this moment, an arrogant voice sounded in the void. On Ning Chen's path, 10,000 swords soared into the sky. On the 10,000 swords, a white-robed figure flew over. The shocking formation attracted the attention of all parties. Little Celestial Venerable, Dugu Jian. In the Wuji heavenly realm, the gods and demons looked at the sky with strange expressions. Legend had it that Dugu Jian was the reincarnation of a true ancient almighty. He cultivated the sword all his life. Before entering the heaven realm, he could kill a true Celestial Venerable. Hence, he was called Little Celestial Venerable. In the void, Little Celestial Venerable Dugu Jian flew over on his sword. 10,000 swords paved the way. The swordsman avoided the battle. You have humiliated the sword. On the 10,000 swords, Dugu Jian looked at the white-haired young man in front of him and said coldly. Ning Chen ignored him. He did not slow down at all and continued forward. Seeing the arrogant look of the young man in front of him, Dugu Jian was furious. He used his fingers to control his sword, and 10,000 swords slashed at the young man. 10,000 swords broke through the sky with great power. They cut through the void and slashed at knowing destiny. Ning Chen did not care. His figure flashed past without dodging and directly rushed into the 10,000 swords. In the distance, Heavenly Venerable Qing Yu, who was in seclusion, opened his eyes again and looked at the sky. At the same time, in the Wuji heavenly realm, several heaven realm sovereigns who stood at the top of the great world also looked at the sky and watched the battle with interest. The Little Celestial Venerable's reputation was very well known in the Wuji heavenly realm. After all, a genius who could challenge a heaven realm sovereign was always admired by the young people. All parties were watching. In the void, two figures brushed past each other. Knowing Destiny's figure did not stop at all and continued to move forward. What happened? The fiend gods revealed strange expressions and asked in puzzlement. However, before they finished speaking, a waterfall of blood splattered in the void and covered the sky. How can it be? A severed arm flew down. It was an unbelievable scene. Cold sweat dripped down Dugu Jian's face as he knelt down powerlessly. He had cultivated the sword all his life but did not know it. Today, he finally saw a sword on a sword. In front of him, the white-clothed figure moved forward quickly and disappeared in a short while. An amazing swordsman. In the distance, Heavenly Venerable Qing Yu's eyes burst with a strong fighting spirit. This person's sword was enough to be his opponent. Qing Yu can't sit still. In the Wuji heavenly realm, the heavenly venerables who stood at the top of the world felt the rising sword intent in Qingyu Mountain. It was difficult to find an opponent. Heavenly Venerable Qingyu had been waiting for more than 10,000 years to prove his swordsmanship. In Qingyu Mountain, Heavenly Venerable Qingyu got up and left with his sword. In the most glorious divine land in the east of the Wuji heavenly realm, the largest divine dynasty of the third heaven was located. The Wuji divine dynasty was famous everywhere. Today, knowing Destiny's figure descended from the sky and used the great celestial azure lamp as a guide to find a man. In the land of the Wuji divine dynasty, Ning Chen activated the great celestial azure lamp. Azure light spread out in all directions. At the same time, in the imperial palace of the Wuji divine dynasty, Emperor Wuji felt the powerful force that permeated the entire divine dynasty. His eyes narrowed slightly. Someone was summoning souls in the divine dynasty. I had no choice. I hope Emperor Wuji can forgive me for disturbing your imperial court. At this time, outside the imperial palace, an apologetic voice resounded in the main hall. In front of the throne, Emperor Wuji heard this, and the coldness on his face gradually dissipated. He said calmly, "Please be careful. The soul summoning technique may affect the safety of ordinary people." Emperor Wuji, please don't worry. I will be careful and will not affect your imperial court's people. Knowing Destiny's voice sounded again outside the main hall. That would be for the best. Emperor Limitless nodded and didn't say anything else. The fact that this person had informed him in advance was already giving him face. He couldn't be too aggressive. Even he couldn't afford to offend an expert of this level. It was better for both of them to give him some face. In the land of the Wuji divine dynasty, after Ning Chen informed Emperor Wuji, he did his best to find traces of Man. The azure light from the great celestial azure lamp continued to spread and gradually enveloped the entire Wuji divine dynasty. Found him. All of a sudden, Ning Chen felt an extremely long time coming. His expression changed, and without any hesitation, he quickly headed north. In the north of the Wuji divine dynasty, a man's soul was wandering in a black forest. After 100 years, his soul was extremely weak. The black forest looked a bit strange. There were no birds or beasts in the forest except for the trees. It was eerie. The Black Forest was the biggest forbidden area of the Wuji divine dynasty. For thousands of years, no one dared to enter it. However, a man, who was gradually losing his consciousness, could not sense the danger of the Black Forest and accidentally entered it. Not long after, outside the Black Forest, Ning Chen's figure flashed. Just as he was about to enter, he was stopped by a majestic voice. "Sir, please wait." In the Wuji Divine Palace, Emperor Wuji said seriously, "The Black Forest is ahead. There are many fierce beasts left from ancient times. They are extremely powerful and have a strong sense of territory. Sir, don't go in by mistake." Ning Chen's expression became serious. He said, "Thank you for your reminder, Emperor. However, the person I'm looking for is in there. I have to go in." After speaking, Ning Chen did not say anything else. He took a step forward and flashed into the Black Forest. Ning Chen's figure flashed through the Black Forest that stretched for 100,000 miles. He used the Grand Celestial Lamp as a guide to search for Man's tracks. Roar! Just as Ning Chen was deep in the Black Forest, an extremely terrifying roar came from the depths of the Black Forest to warn others. Ning Chen ignored it and continued forward. He did not stop for a moment. In the depths of the Black Forest, the earth rumbled. A fierce beast the size of a small mountain stood up and roared at the sky. The fierce beast was extremely ferocious. Its entire body was black, and it had 9 heads. Its body was covered in black scales. The roar of the 9 heads shook the world. In front of the fierce beast, a delicate figure stood there in a daze, unaware of the danger. During these 10 days, the fierce beast did not kill the wandering girl's soul. It was like a human disdaining to step on an ant. However, the moment Jiming stepped into the Black Forest, the fierce beast felt threatened. It roared at the sky and black flames spread out from its body. Immediately, the demonic flames in the depths of the Black Forest devoured the sky. It was a terrifying scene. In the distance, Ning Chen felt it. His expression changed, and the phoenix flames around him flourished. He transformed into a phoenix and flashed towards the depths of the Black Forest. Chapter 1445. In the depths of the Black Forest, a ferocious beast that was as tall as a small mountain roared. In front of it, a tiny human girl stood there. Her life was like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. Feeling the threat from afar, demonic flames surged around the ferocious beast. It was about to swallow the human girl. At this moment, a phoenix roared in the distance. The fiery red phoenix flew past. At the most dangerous moment, it used its body to knock the ferocious beast away. The two behemoths collided with each other. Instantly, the trees in the Black Forest collapsed and black demonic flames ignited. Ning Chen's figure appeared in the phoenix flames. A sword appeared in his hand and blocked the ferocious beast. Behind him, A man looked at the person in front of her with confusion. A man, hide behind me. I'll bring you out. Chaotic true essence surged around Ning Chen's body, and it protected a man within it. Roar! In front of him, the giant ferocious beast roared again. Black flames covered its feet and its 9 heads spat out demonic flames at the same time. Ning Chen waved his sword and slashed the demonic flames in the sky. He did not want to continue fighting and quickly retreated. Roar! However, the completely enraged black ferocious beast would not give up. With a roar, the black forest around it suddenly shook. It was a shocking scene. The black forest collapsed and the demonic flames spread, turning the entire black forest into a sea of fire. Ning Chen frowned and looked back at the ferocious beast chasing behind him. Killing intent flashed across his face. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Ning Chen's chaotic true essence surged violently. A green coffin appeared and opened, sucking A Man's soul into it. After doing all this, Ning Chen's figure flashed past and instantly arrived in front of the black ferocious beast. He punched out and directly smashed one of its heads. Instantly, a violent collision sounded. The ferocious beast's body was directly smashed into the ground, shaking up a cloud of dust. Roar! At this moment, terrifying roars came from all directions in the boundless black forest. All the ferocious beasts went berserk. A giant black bird flapped its wings and swooped down quickly. Ning Chen raised his head and waved his sword, blocking the sharp black claws. At the same time, a giant black tiger rushed over from the west side of the black forest. Its huge body knocked down one tree after another. Ning Chen frowned again. He raised his left hand and blocked the charging black tiger. Roar! At this moment, the 9 ferocious beasts below Ning Chen struggled to get up. Their 9 mouths opened, and demonic flames burned the sky. Ning Chen stomped on the ground and dashed hundreds of meters away, avoiding the demonic flames that burned the sky. All of a sudden, the scene around Ning Chen changed rapidly. Most of the time, the intelligence of the ferocious beasts was even more terrifying. That young man was blind. Although he was powerful, his weakness was also obvious. With the black fox around, any small flaw would be infinitely magnified. If that young man could not deal with this predicament, he would most likely die. Deep in the black forest, knowing Destiny's state, who had lost both his eyes and ears, stood quietly in the darkness. He used his divine sense as his eyes to guard against the dangers around him. Around the battlefield, the 9 Kirins, the 9-tailed black fox, the black tiger, and the giant bird all stayed where they were cautiously. They were not in a hurry to attack. They could feel the power of the human in front of them and were unwilling to attack rashly. Woo! Outside the battlefield, the 9-tailed black fox roared again. The mysterious sound was like waves, destroying everything in its path. In the center of the battlefield, Ning Chen was hit by the mysterious sound. Blood splashed all over his body, and he retreated several steps. His divine sense, which was in great pain, was affected by the mysterious sound. He could no longer distinguish things. 10 steps away, Ning Chen covered his head with his left hand. Cold sweat poured down his body. Even he did not expect these ferocious beasts to be so powerful. Knowing that if he could not deal with this situation, he would die here. Ning Chen clenched his hands. In the turbulent airflow, the human and demon swords appeared. His vision, hearing, and divine sense were all lost. Only darkness was left around Ning Chen. However, he still had his swords. The human and sword breathed together, the human and sword felt together, and the human and sword sounded together. In the depths of the black forest, Ning Chen stepped forward. In a flash, he was in front of the black fox like lightning. When the sword reached a new level, the human and sword became one, the human and sword breathed together. Wherever the sword went, the human and sword felt together. The black fox roared. Its 9 tails swayed and slapped down at the same time. The 9 tails were as heavy as mountains. Ning Chen walked among them, and the 2 swords rotated. It was a shocking scene. The 2 swords slashed across, and the 2 tails were cut off. Every time the extremely sharp divine swords slashed, there would be a waterfall of blood. With the human and sword as one, Ning Chen relied on the senses of the swords. His moves were completely instinctive. The black fox was injured. Not far away, the black tiger immediately rushed over, wanting to save the black fox from danger. The two swords moved rhythmically. Ning Chen's body moved at the same time. He stepped forward and avoided the rampaging black tiger. Space break. The human and tiger brushed past each other. Ning Chen waved his sword. The human and sword shone brightly. One sword cut through the void. The black tiger roared. A horrifying sword wound appeared on its body. It was so deep that its bones could be seen. Roar! Behind him, the 9 Qilins opened their mouths. Demonic fire spewed out and attacked again. World-burning demonic flame. In Ning Chen's left hand, the demonic sword hummed. The demonic flame burned brightly. He waved his sword and met the attack head-on. In an instant, the demonic fire and demonic flame collided with each other. The chaotic demonic flame destroyed the demonic fire and swallowed the 9 Qilins. Within the demonic flame, the 9 Qilins roared. They ran around in pain and crashed into a mountain peak not far away. After pushing back the 3 beasts, Ning Chen's momentum was exhausted. In the sky, the giant black bird swooped down, its sharp claws threatening to kill. Immortal execution. In the moment of crisis, Ning Chen shouted. Ferocious aura erupted from his body. The immortal execution appeared and blocked the deadly claws with a loud bang. 3 swords struck out at the same time. The giant blackbird's attack was blocked. Ning Chen's 2 swords slashed across. Immediately, blood splattered all over the sky, falling like rain. The 2 swords slashed at its wings. The giant blackbird let out a long and mournful cry. Its body fell down involuntarily. Azure Dragon Fall. Ning Chen raised his hand and grabbed the giant blackbird. He slammed it on the ground. The scattered black feathers were dyed red with blood. Ning Chen's white clothes were dyed red. In the battle, the 9 Qilins, the 9-tailed black fox, and the black tiger were terrified. The threat of death was right in front of them. The 3 ancient beasts that had ruled the Black Forest for tens of thousands of years finally realized that they had provoked someone they shouldn't have. The 3 beasts looked at each other and didn't dare to fight anymore. They turned around and fled in different directions in the Black Forest. In the center of the battle, Ning Chen's demonic aura surged and swallowed the giant black bird. After a long time, Ning Chen suppressed the injuries in his body and walked in the direction of the black fox. The black fox's skills were extraordinary and useful to him. In the north of the Black Forest, the black fox that had lost its 2 tails hid in the mountains. It trembled and didn't dare to breathe loudly. In front of the mountains, Ning Chen stepped forward. He released his divine sense and a cold expression flashed across his face. Found it. Ning Chen raised the demonic sword in his hand and slashed down. In the Black Forest, a shocking sword light descended from the sky and slashed the mountains in front of him. In the rumbling, the mountains separated. The black fox's huge body appeared in front of him. There was nowhere to hide. Ning Chen stepped forward. His expression was cold and emotionless. The demonic sword flickered and didn't hide its murderous intent at all. Under Ning Chen's empty eyes, his heart was as cold as ice. Aren't you going to run anymore? Ning Chen said coldly. Woo! The black fox lowered its body and begged for mercy, trembling. The fox's innate intelligence made it more respectful to the strong. It knew that if it continued to resist, the human in front of it would definitely kill it without hesitation. In front of the black fox, Ning Chen raised his hand and pressed on the black fox's head. His body shone with a strange light. Layers of divine restrictions formed a silver halo, binding the black fox's limbs and head. After a while, the silver light disappeared and entered the black fox's body. Little gourd, Ning Chen called. Immortal. The little gourd heard the call and flew out. It said happily, Immortal, what's the matter? This fox is for you. Ning Chen raised his hand and a small bell formed. It turned into a pendant and hung on the little gourd's neck. What's this? The little gourd picked up the small bell in front of its chest and shook it gently. It was curious. The bell rang. In front, the black fox suddenly let out a shrill scream. Silver halos appeared on its limbs and head and shrank rapidly. Chapter 1446. In the Black Forest, Ningchen subdued the black fox and did not stay any longer. He turned around and left. Outside the Black Forest, Emperor Qingyu stood there, waiting patiently. Not long after, Ningchen walked out, his body full of blood qi. After a great battle, he did not have time to clean his blood-stained clothes. Outside the Black Forest, two figures brushed past each other. Emperor Qingyu said calmly, "You owe me a battle." Ningchen stopped, "I don't have time. If you want to find an opponent, you can go to the divine world." Divine world? Emperor Qingyu frowned slightly, "You are from the divine world." Ningchen nodded, "Moreover, I will return to the divine world now." Emperor Qingyu narrowed his eyes, "There is a sword expert like you in the divine world?" "There is." Ningchen said calmly, "There is a person called the Son of Heaven Sword Master. His sword cultivation is not below mine. Before this, I fought with him once. If not for my good luck, I might have died in his hands." Emperor Qingyu's eyes flashed. There was such an expert? Even he did not dare to say that he could win against the young man in front of him. A battle of the sword was full of changes. The young man in front of him had truly reached the peak of perfection in sword cultivation. Perhaps it would not be long before he could use the sword to understand the Tao. "We will meet again," Ningchen said. Without further delay, he took a step and soared into the sky. In the next moment, the sword light broke through the void and disappeared. In front of the Black Forest, Emperor Qingyu looked at the figure in the sky, frowning slightly. This person was indeed the best opponent, but he did not have the heart to fight. After pondering for a moment, Emperor Qingyu took a step and turned into a stream of light, flying into the sky. Since there was a powerful sword expert in the divine world, then he would make a trip. Outside the everlasting sky, two sword lights flashed past, moving forward rapidly. Ningchen felt Emperor Qingyu chasing behind him, but he ignored him and continued on his way. The two of them hurried on their way to the divine world. In the second layer of heaven, outside the separation and reunion sky, the two rushed in one after another, shocking everyone. "It's him again!" In the separation and reunion heaven, the faces of the heaven realm supremes darkened. The lesson of the turtle spirit patriarch was still vivid in their minds. No one dared to make trouble again. In the void, Emperor Qingyu felt the silence of the heaven realm sovereigns in the separation and reunion heavenly realm, and a strange look appeared on his face. From the looks of it, this young man had given these people quite a bit of pressure in the separation and reunion heavenly realm. Several days later, the two of them rushed out of the separation and reunion heavenly realm and continued their journey to the divine world. In the northern realm of the divinity, Empress Shui Yun stood quietly in front of the imperial palace, waiting for knowing destiny to return. That day, when she lit the big sky green lantern, the flame of the green lantern was already very weak. Counting the days, that brat should be back soon. Otherwise, even if the golden immortal of the great firmament was alive, he would not be able to save that girl. Before Shaochen could finish his thoughts, the cry of a phoenix resounded in the 9 heavens. Under the shocked gazes of everyone, phoenix flames swept across the sky at an extremely fast speed, even faster than lightning. "Here it comes." The Empress's eyes froze. She had finally rushed back. In the sky above the northern region, a phoenix descended from the sky, its body surging with phoenix flames, shocking the world. Ningchen walked out of the phoenix flames and looked at the Empress who was waiting in front of him. He bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, Empress." No need to say anything more. Where is he? There was not much time left, so the Empress did not want to say anything more. Ningchen waved his hand, and a green coffin appeared out of thin air. With a rumble, the green coffin opened and landed in front of the Empress. The Empress focused and did not delay for a moment. With a deep shout, the light around her body shone brightly, and she soared into the sky. In the void, Empress Shui Yun displayed her shocking ability again. Majestic and powerful chants resounded as she used a supreme secret technique to fuse a man's divine soul and physical body. After 100 years, her divine soul had been severely damaged. Even someone as strong as Empress Shui Yun did not dare to be careless. She fully activated her cultivation and changed her fate. Boom! At this moment, wind and thunder roared in the 9 heavens, punishing those who defied the heavens. Below, Ning Chen's figure flashed past and instantly appeared in the void. He unsheathed his 2 swords and blocked the heavenly punishment. Boom! Earth-shattering tremors resounded. Ning Chen blocked the heavenly punishment with his 2 swords, protecting the last pure land for the Empress below. The two who had once faced each other in life and death were now working together to change the fate of the deceased. In the distance, celestial Venerable Qingyu descended from the sky. Looking at the scene in front of him, his expression became serious. It turned out that he was in such a hurry to save someone. That woman's strength was also shocking. The divinity was indeed full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Boom! In the 9 heavens, endless lightning struck down. Under the sea of lightning, Ning Chen's 2 swords danced together, protecting the final line. The heavenly punishment was all over his body, and its power multiplied. Ning Chen's true yuan surged and attracted all the heavenly punishment. Below, the Empress also gathered all her power. She flipped her hands and guided Ah Man's physical body and divine soul to slowly fuse together. Empress Shui Yun, the most powerful person in the north, used heavenly methods to defy the heavens and forcefully revive the deceased. As the divine soul and physical body fused, a terrifying will of heaven and earth erupted. The heavens sensed it, and endless power of rules gathered to destroy the resurrected deceased. It was a shocking scene. In the void, a giant hand of rules condensed and directly grabbed at the 2 people in front of it. Seeing this, the Empress's expression darkened. She condensed her true yuan, and cold air filled the air. She directly met it with a powerful palm. With a boom, the heavens and earth changed. An emperor shook the heavens, and an earth-shattering impact sounded. The giant hand of rules directly collapsed. At the heaven realm, every heaven realm venerable already had the power to contend with the great world. As the leader of the heaven realm venerables, the Empress's strength was even more tyrannical. Even in the face of the great world's rules, she was not afraid at all. In the sky above the imperial palace, the human and the god worked together. Ah Man, whose divine soul had been separated for 100 years, finally had her physical body and soul completely fused. However, after a dozen breaths, there was still no sign of life around Ah Man. Even her heart did not beat. In front of her, the Empress's expression became more and more serious. The divine soul and physical body had been separated for too long, and the vitality of the physical body had almost dissipated. This was troublesome. This girl might not be able to be saved. The Empress looked at the white-haired young man in the sky who was still blocking the tribulation. Pity flashed in her eyes. If she told this news to this person, it would be too cruel. Boom! In the sky, lightning fell from the sky. Under the sea of lightning, Ning Chen blocked the lightning with his 2 swords. He was as still as a mountain. If he took another step back, he would die. In order to revive Ah Man, Ning Chen refused to take even half a step back. He took all the punishment by himself. The heavens were furious. Above the 9 heavens, lightning and fire rolled. The scene of burning the sky was shocking. Boom! Lightning and fire broke through the sky, and its power was even more shocking. Under the sea of lightning, Ning Chen crossed his 2 swords and blocked the punishment by himself. With a terrifying tremor, Ning Chen's hands, which were holding the swords, cracked and blood splashed out. The undying demon body showed its power again and quickly healed knowing Destiny's injured body. In the face of the increasingly terrifying punishment, Ning Chen's true yuan rose rapidly. The spiritual qi around him surged and turned into a huge storm to block the shocking punishment by himself. Below, the Empress looked at the unconscious Ah Man in front of her. She poured her true yuan into her body and tried her best. However, everything was in vain. After trying for a long time, she still couldn't ignite the flame of life in Ah Man's body. The Empress clenched her hands and looked at the white-haired young man in the sky again. She could see that this girl was very important to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have traveled hundreds of millions of miles and risked his life. However, she tried her best. If the flame of life couldn't be ignited, even she couldn't save her. Boom! Lightning fell from the sky. Ning Chen, who didn't know the truth, blocked the lightning again with his sword. Blood splashed from the corner of his mouth and dyed his clothes red. In the face of the increasingly powerful punishment, Ning Chen still didn't step back. He resisted the will of heaven and earth with his body. In the distance, as an outsider, Lord Qingyu saw this scene and sighed. He had guessed the truth. That girl couldn't be saved. Even though they were the supremes in the heaven state, there were things they couldn't do. For example, reviving the dead. No matter how powerful the supremes were, they couldn't save someone who was already dead. Even deities couldn't do that. If that girl still had a trace of life in her body, there might be hope of saving her. However, that wasn't the case. Just then, in the sky above the imperial palace, the energy around the empress changed. Her hands kept forming hand seals. A strange light rose up. It was so dazzling. After a while, rays of light entered Ah Man's body. They turned into layers of seals and entered her sea of qi. After doing all this, the empress waved her hand and sent Ah Man into the green coffin. The green coffin closed and covered all of her energy. In the sky, the rolling clouds couldn't sense Ah Man's energy and quickly dispersed. Ning Chen sensed something. He looked down with his empty eyes and was confused. "Is she awake?" Ning Chen said with an expectant expression. "Not yet. Her soul and body have been separated for too long. She can't wake up yet." The empress smiled. "However, you don't have to worry too much. Her soul has returned. It's only a matter of time before she wakes up." Hearing this, Ning Chen frowned and said, "Do you have a specific time?" The empress thought for a while and said, "Maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years. There's no rush." Ning Chen was silent. He nodded and said, "Thank you, Empress." The Empress nodded and waved her hand to send the green coffin out. She smiled and said, "This green coffin is extraordinary. It doesn't look like an ordinary item. Where did you get it?" 100 years ago, I went to the Eastern Celestial World and took this coffin, Ning Chen said honestly. "I see." The Empress nodded. "Protect this girl's body well. She will wake up sooner or later. Remember, don't let her body be damaged. Otherwise, she may never wake up." "I will." Ning Chen nodded. Phoenix flames spread around his body. A phoenix appeared and swallowed the green coffin. "Is that celestial venerable your friend?" The Empress looked into the distance and deliberately changed the topic. "No." Ning Chen said softly. "He's a celestial venerable of the third heaven. He came here to find an opponent to prove his sword." "Wuji heaven?" The Empress's eyes flashed with surprise. This person came from there. Seeing that the matter was over, Celestial Venerable Qing Yu's figure flashed and came in front of the two. Wuji Heaven Qing Yu greets the two friends. Celestial Venerable Qing Yu bowed politely. "Celestial Venerable, you're too polite." The Empress returned the greeting and said softly, "Honorable guests, please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." "You're too polite." Celestial Venerable Qing Yu replied. He looked at the white-haired young man and sighed in his heart. He opened his mouth but stopped. Chapter 1447. In the Northern Territory, in the sky above Water Cloud Imperial Palace, Emperor Qingyu had chased after them for hundreds of millions of miles, all for the sake of proving his sword. Ning Chen stood in the air. His white hair danced in the wind, and there were bloodstains on his white robes. The female empress and Emperor Qingyu looked at the young man before them, suppressing the words in their hearts. He hoped that the young man in front of him would discover this fact later. "Ning Chen, I will only give you 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, your life will belong to me," the Water Empress said in a serious tone. "I will keep my promise." Ning Chen nodded. Ahead, Emperor Qingyu looked at the young man before him and opened his mouth to say, "Friend, can you have a battle?" Ning Chen was silent for a long time before he spoke. "Heavenly Sovereign, I'll take you to the Eastern God realm. The Son of Heaven Sword's master is there." When Emperor Qingyu heard that, he sighed in his heart and nodded his head, not forcing it anymore. Thank you. Emperor Qingyu replied politely. Empress, thank you for your help. I'll take my leave first. Ningchen turned to Empress Shui Yun and bowed. Then, he turned around and rushed toward the Eastern Divine Realm. Emperor Qingyu followed after with a step, his figure transforming into a green light, chasing after at high speed. Several days later, in the Eastern Divine Realm, Ningchen arrived with Emperor Qingyu. He released his divine senses to search for Bai Wangyu and Yao Yu's auras. In the northwest of the Eastern Divine Realm, inside a large temple, Bai Wangyu felt the oppressive might of several breaths in the distance and immediately released his aura. Over there. Ningchen sensed it and immediately rushed towards the north. A strange light flashed in Emperor Qingyu's eyes. Another swordsman? The God Realm was truly a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Half a day later, in the Dragon King Temple, Ningchen and Emperor Qingyu descended from the sky and entered the temple. In the temple, Bai Wangyu quickly walked forward. When he saw the 2 days later, his expression was clearly startled. This is... Bai Wangyu asked. Emperor Qingyu, from the third heaven. Ningchen introduced, this is Bai Wangyu. Limitless heaven? When Bai Wangyu heard this, a strange expression appeared on his face. This person actually came from the Wuji celestial realm. Nice to meet you. Emperor Qingyu said politely. Bai Wangyu returned the greeting. Suddenly, his expression froze. He looked at Ningchen's eyes and said in shock, Your eyes? It's just that I can't see. It doesn't matter, Ningchen said calmly. However, before he could finish his words, a beautiful figure quickly walked over from behind the Dragon King Temple. When she saw the white-haired young man in front of her, tears welled up in her eyes. Benefactor. Yu Yao stepped forward and bowed. Ningchen stepped forward and helped the girl up. He smiled and said, I haven't seen you for 100 years. Your cultivation base has improved a lot. Yao Yu looked at the empty eyes of the person in front of her. She clenched her fists and sobbed softly. What about Qing Jian? How is he? Ningchen asked. Not long after you left, he woke up and then left. Bai Wangyu replied. Ningchen nodded. Qing Jian had his own path to walk, and it was impossible for him to walk with them forever. Friend, can we have a fight? At this time, behind Ningchen, Emperor Qingyu looked at the white-robed young man and asked seriously. When Bai Wangyu heard this, his expression froze. A moment later, he came back to his senses and shook his head. No. Why? Emperor Qingyu said with a frown. You came to me because Ningchen didn't want to fight with you. That's why you came to me. I won't fight either. You can find someone else. Bai Wangyu rejected. Emperor Qingyu was speechless, not knowing what to say. Is the son of Heaven Sword's master in the Eastern Divine World now? Ningchen asked. He's in the Son of Heaven Sword sect. After saying that, Bai Wangyu looked at the middle-aged man in front of him and said, That's right. You can go and find the Son of Heaven Sword's master to issue a challenge. It's said that the Son of Heaven Sword's master will soon step into the fifth realm and become the first person in the world to break into the heaven realm with the sword Dao. When Emperor Qingyu heard this, his expression changed. He closed his eyes and released his divine sense. Suddenly, a powerful divine sense quickly spread out in the Eastern Divine World. 100,000 miles away, in the Son of Heaven Sword sect, the Son of Heaven Sword's master felt it. He opened his eyes and a flash of golden light burst out. In the void, two powerful sword intents collided. They were separated by 100,000 miles and separated by heaven and earth. What a powerful sword intent! Emperor Qingyu and the Son of Heaven Sword's master's expressions froze at the same time. They were shocked by the other party's strength. In the Dragon King Temple, Emperor Qingyu opened his eyes and turned to walk out of the temple. Behind him, Ningchen stood quietly and said, Be careful. The Son of Heaven Sword's master is very strong. Especially his eyes, they can see through any move. Thank you for the reminder. Emperor Qingyu stopped and responded. Then, he took a step and leaped into the distance. In the temple, Bai Wangyu looked at the white-haired man in front of him and said, Why did you bring back such an old monster? He could see that this Emperor Qingyu was an extremely powerful existence. Even compared to the four rulers of the divine world, he was not inferior. It's a long story. Ning Chen said calmly, let's go. Let's also watch this battle of the sword. Maybe we can learn something. That's what I was thinking. Bai Wangyu smiled. Behind him, Yao Yu stepped forward and followed closely behind. Oh right, in these 100 years, did the Son of Heaven Sword sect find trouble with you? Ning Chen asked. No. Bai Wangyu shook his head. Strange. Ning Chen revealed a strange expression. Back then when he saved Yao Yu, the Son of Heaven Sword's master even personally made a move. Now, the Son of Heaven Sword sect was so calm. It was really unusual. There was also one thing that he had always been concerned about. It was the seal in Yao Yu's body. The seal in Yao Yu's body was something that even he could not understand. It was definitely not set up by an ordinary person. Was this matter related to the Son of Heaven Sword sect? 100,000 miles to the east, above the Son of Heaven Sword sect, a green sword light broke through the sky. On the ancient sword, Emperor Qingyu stood quietly with a celestial aura. On the Son of Heaven Sword peak, the Son of Heaven Sword's master stood proudly. He looked at the figure in the sky, his sword intent rising. I'm Qingyu. I'm here to fight. In the void, Emperor Qingyu waved his hand. A sword scroll fell from the sky and landed on the Son of Heaven Sword. The Son of Heaven Sword's master looked at the sword scroll in front of him and narrowed his eyes. When and where? 3 days later, 30,000 miles to the west on the Great River. Emperor Qingyu said, Sky Mirror Lake? It suits the occasion. Sure. The Son of Heaven Sword's master nodded and said, I'll accept this sword scroll. We'll meet again someday. In the void, Emperor Qingyu replied and flew away on his sword. Sky Mirror Lake, the sun rose and set. 3 days later, the great battle was about to begin. It was unknown who spread the news that 2 peerless swordsmen were going to fight here. In 3 days, experts from all over the divine world rushed over to watch the battle of swordsmen. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The moon set and the sun rose. When the first rays of dawn fell on the earth, in the distance, 2 beams of sword light fell from the sky. Similarly, the majestic sword intent shocked everyone. The 4 sovereigns of the divine world were also paying attention to this battle. It had been countless years since a sword Dao Empyrean had appeared. The Son of Heaven Sword Sovereign was hailed as the person most likely to become a sword Dao Empyrean. As for his opponent, he was also extremely powerful, someone who could control 2 types of heavenly Daos. If he could prove his sword Dao, he would become a 3 Daos Empyrean. Outside the Sky Mirror Lake, 3 figures descended from the sky. They were none other than Ning Chen and the other 2 who came to watch the battle. His white hair fluttered in the wind. Ning Chen stood quietly in the void, waiting for the battle to begin. 100 years had passed. The strength of the Son of Heaven Sword's master was definitely stronger than before. How would he fare against a true Empyrean? Ning Chen, who do you think has a higher chance of winning between the Son of Heaven Sword's master and Emperor Qingyu? On the left, Bai Wangyu asked. 50-50. Ning Chen said calmly. Oh. Bai Wangyu's eyes narrowed. This Emperor Qingyu has already grasped 2 types of heavenly Dao laws. His realm is completely suppressed. How can the Son of Heaven Sword overcome this disadvantage? 100 years ago, the Son of Heaven Sword's master and I once joined forces to fight the Empress. At that time, I could faintly feel an extremely powerful force within the Son of Heaven Sword's master. However, this person is good at hiding and has never used his full strength. Ning Chen replied. You deliberately arranged this battle for this reason? Bai Wangyu asked in surprise. Know yourself and know your enemy and you will never be defeated. Ning Chen said indifferently. The Son of Heaven Sword's master is an enemy and not a friend. We will have to fight him sooner or later. Why don't we take this opportunity to find out more about him? Impressive. Bai Wangyu gave him a thumbs up and said in admiration, you really never forget to scheme against others. Just focus on watching the battle. Ning Chen said calmly and did not say anything else. His empty eyes looked forward as he released his divine sense, waiting for the battle to start. On the heavenly mirror lake, raging waves surged. The largest river in the eastern divine realm, stretching for thousands of miles, converged here, creating a shocking scene. Above the great river, two of the world's top swordsmen rose into the air. The atmosphere was heavy, and the battle was about to start. "Please." The two spoke at the same time. As their voices fell, two divine swords were unsheathed. In an instant, the battle on the heavenly mirror lake began. The two figures disappeared, turning into flowing light and colliding together. Boom. There was no probing, no mercy. The battle was white-hot from the beginning. The two turned into sword light, colliding continuously between heaven and earth. They were so fast that even their figures could not be seen clearly. Outside the battle, the experts of the divine realm were watching the battle, their faces full of shock. This was no longer an ordinary battle, but a battle of gods. The two of them were comparable to real gods. In an abnormally intense battle, the two figures intersected and rushed into the sky, reaching the 9 heavens. Below, everyone was watching the battle, their eyes looking at the sky. Floating clouds covered their eyes. At this moment, golden light shone brightly in the sky, completely blocking everyone's sight. The golden light exploded. Below, everyone's eyes were stimulated, and they immediately closed their eyes subconsciously. Not good. At this moment, Ning Chen's expression changed slightly. He stepped into the air and rushed into the sky. In the void, Emperor Qingyu's body fell from the sky. His green robe was dyed red, and he was abnormally miserable. Ning Chen caught Emperor Qingyu. His divine sense passed through the golden light and locked onto the Son of Heaven sword's owner. Suddenly, Ning Chen's face sank again. His empty eyes looked below, and he immediately rushed over. "I'll take the two of them away." On the heavenly mirror lake, golden light gathered. The Son of Heaven sword's owner walked out of thin air and came behind by Wang Yu and Yao Yu. He raised his hand to stop the two, and then he turned into golden light and left. Boom. Just as the Son of Heaven sword's owner left, below, the heavenly mirror lake was directly cut open by the sword light. Ning Chen rushed over with his sword in hand, and without any pause, he quickly chased after him. Chapter 1448. In the Eastern Divine World, no one could see the end of the sword battle. Heavenly Lord Qinyu was severely injured and almost died. The Son of Heaven sword owner displayed an unprecedented ability. He suppressed by Wang Yu and Yao Yu in one move and turned into a golden light to leave. On the sky mirror lake, Ning Chen slashed open the river and chased after him without any hesitation. In the God world, the two figures flashed through the sky one after the other. Their speed was so fast that it was shocking. The phoenix's speed was unparalleled in the world. Ning Chen was surrounded by phoenix flames as he chased after the Son of Heaven sword owner. After chasing for tens of thousands of miles, the Son of Heaven sword owner stopped in the sky above the Son of Heaven sword sect. He waved his hand and beams of sword light shot into the sky. Kill! The Son of Heaven sword owner came down. Below, thousands of white-robed sword immortals flew out and surrounded knowing destiny state. Form the formation. In the void, the Son of Heaven sword owner ordered. Ha! With a shout, 3,000 white-robed sword immortals formed the formation. Sword light flashed and trapped knowing destiny state. In the Son of Heaven sword formation, Ning Chen stood in the air and looked forward with his empty eyes. His white hair danced in the wind. Such a sword formation can't trap knowing destiny state. Ning Chen held his sword and slashed with his left hand. Suddenly, a surge of sword pressure spread out. Thousands of sword lights slashed at the 3,000 sword immortals. Thousands of sword lights slashed at the sword immortals. In the Son of Heaven sword formation, the 3,000 sword immortals were defeated and their white robes were dyed red. Outside the sword formation, the Son of Heaven sword owner looked at the white-haired young man in front of him and said, "It's been 100 years. Your sword has improved a lot." In the sword formation, Ning Chen's sword will surged and killed the white-robed sword immortals one by one. The sword of destruction didn't leave any chance of survival. "Let them go." Ningchen raised his hand. Sword light surged and turned into thousands of sword streams. The Son of Heaven sword owner swung his sword. The golden sword light broke open and blocked the thousands of sword streams. Do you know why I insist on capturing this little demon? The Son of Heaven sword owner flipped his right hand. The golden sword light was faintly visible. The powerful sword pressure was infinitely close to the fifth realm. In the sword formation, Ningchen felt something and a bad feeling rose in his heart. Because this little demon has a sword mark that I left in him. As he spoke, the Son of Heaven sword master stretched out his hand and thrust it into Yao Yu's dantian. His smiling face immediately turned red. And this by Wang Yu, have you never doubted his identity? As one of the top swordsmen of the Eastern Divine Realm, no one knows where he came from. Even he himself doesn't know. Within the sword formation, Ning Chen's expression changed. He seemed to have thought of something, and his figure flashed out while his killing intent surged. All of a sudden, the sword formation formed by 3,000 sword immortals was broken into pieces. Before the absolute sword pressure, even the exquisite Emperor's sword formation could not stop the knowing destiny state. Have you guessed it? Unfortunately, you can't stop it. He raised his hand and pressed it on by Wang Yu's head. A powerful suction force spread out and quickly swallowed by Wang Yu's figure. Bye. Before he disappeared, a smile of farewell appeared on by Wang Yu's face as he said softly. Ning Chen's body trembled. The high-spirited young man in white competed with him indiscriminately. In the end, they fought to the end of the world and only returned in a sorry state with the guidance of the moon god. They were once enemies and friends. Later, they became friends. After more than 100 years, Ning Chen had long regarded the young man in front of him as his best friend. In the end, he did not expect that everything was just an illusion. In the void, Yao Yu's face showed a hint of reluctance. The sword mark in his body was swallowed by the Son of Heaven sword owner along with his life. He only had time to say goodbye before he could no longer speak. In front, Ning Chen's body trembled again. He reached out to grab something, but he could not grab anything. In the Western world of Buddhism, the demon lord saw this scene and his expression darkened. Not good. In the Northern Divine Realm, the Water Cloud Imperial Palace. The Empress walked out of the palace and looked at the Eastern Divine Realm. Her expression also turned cold. So that's how it is. The Son of Heaven sword owner is a hero of a generation. However, could that little phoenix withstand such a blow? In the Eastern Divine Realm, in the sky above the Son of Heaven sword sect, the Son of Heaven sword owner took back the sword mark that was nourished with Yao Yu's life. At the same time, he raised his hand and swallowed the sword body that he had nurtured for 10,000 years. In an instant, above the void, an unusually dazzling sword light rushed into the sky. With the sword mark as a guide, the Son of Heaven sword owner swallowed the sword body. The two sword intents merged and a terrifying sword pressure swept out crazily. Boom! Above the 9 heavens, dark clouds rolled and covered the sky. In the dark clouds, muffled thunder resounded through the 9 heavens. With the sword mark as a guide and the sword body's power, the Son of Heaven sword owner took another step forward and finally took the legendary last step. For thousands of years, no one in the sword realm could prove the heavenly Tao. Today, the Son of Heaven sword owner broke through the shackles and ascended to the heaven realm. The most terrifying scene was that the Son of Heaven sword owner was surrounded by tens of thousands of lightning bolts. Sword pressure, endless sword pressure, as if it was real, pressed down from all directions. It was so powerful that it made people despair. Everywhere in the divine realm, the 4 sovereigns of the divine realm felt the sword pressure and their expressions turned serious. What a terrifying power! Southern border, Rising Sun Divine Palace. The Rising Sun Tiger God and the Moon Goddess stood in front of the divine palace and looked at the Eastern Divine Realm with heavy hearts. The Son of Heaven sword owner had used the power of living beings as a sacrifice to the sword. By Wang Yu and Yao Yu were just sacrifices used by the Son of Heaven sword owner. High Priest. The Moon Goddess's eyes flashed with worry. Why was the heavens so unfair? In the Eastern Divine Realm, The bodies of the white-robed sword immortals exploded in the violent sword pressure. Everything that belonged to them was taken by the Son of Heaven sword owner and merged into the endless sword pressure. In front of him, Ning Chen's white robe and white hair fluttered in the wind, but he didn't retreat a single step. He was so quiet that it was terrifying. Blood streaks appeared in his empty and lifeless eyes, and a drop of blood silently slid down his face. Gradually, the phoenix fire around Ning Chen's body faded and demonic qi surged out. Kill! Ning Chen stepped forward. His excessive calmness made people feel even more frightened. Close at hand, the demonic sword in Ning Chen's hand slashed down with boundless power. Boom! Lightning fell and the two were struck at the same time. The terrifying heavenly tribulation struck them both. At the same time, the two swords in their hands clashed. The shocking sword pressure actually forcefully dispersed the heavenly tribulation. Is this all you're angry about? The Son of Heaven sword owner swung his sword and pushed the person in front of him away. His body was surrounded by golden light and the unprecedented sword pressure completely suppressed the knowing destiny state expert. Under the violent sword pressure, Ning Chen's bones made ear-piercing sounds and he couldn't move an inch. Kill! An unshakable opponent was almost unbeatable. However, Ning Chen didn't want to retreat. He held his sword and rushed forward. The demonic sword slashed down with killing intent. The sword shouldn't be so weak. The Son of Heaven sword owner reached out and grabbed the demonic sword. With a clang, the demonic sword was broken. The demonic sword broke and the Son of Heaven sword owner pointed his fingers at Ning Chen's chest. Ugh! A pool of blood splattered in the sky. Ning Chen spat out blood and flew hundreds of feet away. The broken demonic sword was so dazzling. In front of the Heaven Realm sword, the knowing destiny state sword was so weak. Boom! Thunder fell from the sky. The Son of Heaven sword owner looked up and said lightly, "Get out of my way." The Son of Heaven opened his mouth and the law followed his words. The sword will soar into the sky and cut open the sky. In the terrifying sword mark, the clouds in the sky disappeared. It was difficult to withstand the Heaven Realm sword. In front, hundreds of feet away, Ning Chen staggered and stabilized his body. Blood flowed from his chest and dyed his clothes red. The Heaven Realm sword was invincible. In the way of the sword, the knowing destiny state expert was completely suppressed for the first time. Kill! Ning Chen held his sword with both hands. In the surging demonic qi, the human sword and phoenix sword appeared. The destructive sword pressure rushed out rapidly. Too weak. As he spoke, golden light shone. The Son of Heaven sword owner was already in front of Ning Chen. With a slash of his sword, the void shattered. The two swords in Ning Chen's hands responded. With two crisp clangs, the two swords broke. His clothes were torn. Blood splattered and dyed his white hair red. Ning Chen retreated again and again. The broken sword fell and blood dyed the sky. Below the Heaven Realm, everyone is an ant. Your sword is so weak that I don't even have the interest to kill you. In the void, the Son of Heaven sword owner walked forward step by step. Under his feet, the void collapsed. The unprecedented Heaven Realm sword couldn't even withstand the void. Chapter 1449. In the Eastern Divine World, the owner of the Emperor's sword had reached the Heaven Realm. His shocking sword pressure had forced knowing destiny into a desperate situation. The human, phoenix, and demon swords were all broken. Facing the Heaven Realm sword, Ning Chen was completely at a disadvantage. He couldn't fight back at all. The blood-stained white hair was so dazzling that Ning Chen couldn't see it, but he could feel the bone-piercing pain. In the void, the owner of the Emperor's sword walked over. He looked at the blind white-haired young man in front of him and said, "How does it feel to be unable to see the light? Your weakness makes you unable to protect anyone. This is reality." As soon as he finished speaking, the owner of the Emperor's sword was surrounded by golden light. Beams of sword light broke through the void. The majestic sword pressure made people despair. The sword light was about to kill. In the void, a green coffin suddenly flew out and blocked the front. With a boom, the golden sword light shattered the green coffin. A beautiful figure appeared from within. Even though she was in a deep sleep, her divine soul instinctively urged her body to block in front of him. Ning Chen felt it and was shocked. He cried out involuntarily. The sword light pierced through her body, bringing with it a dazzling waterfall of blood. Blood flowed from man's chest, dyeing her dress red. Seeing this, the owner of the emperor's sword frowned slightly. What a troublesome woman! The owner of the emperor's sword slashed down, full of killing intent. Crack! The divine sword cut through her clothes and flesh. In front of him, a shocking scene occurred. Ning Chen's figure blocked in front of man and held her in his arms. The sword cut through his back. Blood blurred and bones could be vaguely seen. You're still alive, right? Ning Chen felt the existence of the woman in his arms. Blood tears flowed from his eyes again. His voice was hoarse. He wasn't a fool. The moment the Empress stopped, he understood everything. Just because he didn't say it didn't mean he didn't know. In the northern region, in front of the water cloud imperial palace, the Empress looked to the east and sighed softly. It turned out that he already knew. The bond between the two of them was too deep. Even though their lives were gone, the remnant of their divine souls still instinctively wanted to protect each other. However, if this was the case, the truth would be even more difficult to hide. You're still alive, right? In the Eastern God realm, Ning Chen held a man in his arms as he softly said those words once more. He was looking forward to that impossible hope. Behind him, killing intent flashed in the eyes of the Son of Heaven sword owner. Golden light surged around him, and an unshakable sword pressure gathered on the Son of Heaven's sword as he slashed down again. However, at this moment, a shocking scene occurred. As the Son of Heaven's sword slashed down, Ning Chen and a man's figures suddenly became blurry, and they vanished after a short moment. 300 meters away, the two figures appeared again. Ning Chen stroked the long hair of the woman in his arms and said softly, "Ah man, wait here. I'll come back after killing someone." After saying that, Ning Chen summoned the 9 black foxes and said calmly, "Guard her well. If she loses a single strand of hair, I will pull out all your tails." Hearing this, the 9 black foxes trembled and said respectfully, "Yes, master." Ning Chen turned around and looked at the owner of the Son of Heaven sword in front of him. He clenched his right hand and the celestial ending sword appeared. The immortal sword appeared. Streaks of blood spread out, piercing into his arm. The immortal sword that he cultivated with his life once again displayed its shocking might. In an instant, a destructive sword pressure spread out in the void. Its power was several times stronger than before. The Son of Heaven sword's expression turned serious. Sword intent rose around him as he took a step forward to gain the initiative. Almost at the same time, Ning Chen's figure moved in the void. He arrived at the battlefield with extreme speed. The Son of Heaven's sword and the celestial ending sword crossed each other. The moment the sword was about to strike, Ning Chen's body dodged. He was unharmed. The Son of Heaven's sword frowned slightly. His figure flashed, and his attacks became more and more violent. However, in the violent sword pressure, Ning Chen's figure kept flashing. Every time, he coincidentally dodged the attack. His shocking reaction was shocking. Divine domain? The Son of Heaven sword's expression sank. There was no mistake, it was the divine domain. The divine domain was a realm that only existed in legends. Once one entered the divine domain, they would be able to display their strength to the maximum. It could be said that it was a realm that only gods could enter. Even in the endless history of the divine world, there were only a few who could step into the divine domain. It could be seen how difficult it was to enter the divine domain. Rather than saying that the divine domain was a realm, it was better to say that the divine domain was the sublimation of battle experience. When battle no longer relied on sight, hearing, and divine consciousness, it truly became the instinct of the body. One would no longer be restricted by the 5 senses, and one's combat strength would be displayed to the maximum. Boom! In an instant, the two figures crossed each other again. Ning Chen waved the celestial sword in his hand, and the destruction sword's pressure spread out, forcing the Son of Heaven sword's owner to retreat for the first time. Boundless sovereign Tao. 3 steps away, the Son of Heaven sword's owner stopped. The heavenly sword exploded with a dazzling brilliance. The sword pressure spread out, enveloping the entire battlefield. The sword pressure was everywhere, blocking the retreat of the knowing destiny state. Facing the divine domain sword, the Son of Heaven sword's owner used all his cultivation to suppress his opponent. In the heavenly sword realm, Ning Chen stood in the air. His body shone with a strange light. The divine domain's brilliance was dazzling. The two strongest swordsmen of the time fought in the final battle. It was a life-and-death battle. In the void, the two sword pressures clashed violently. The heavenly sword's pressure was incomparably strong and suppressed the sword of destruction. At this moment, Ning Chen's figure moved again. He cut open the heavenly sword realm with a sword and instantly appeared in front of the Son of Heaven sword's owner. In the distance, the sword light intersected. The two turned into swords and clashed in the void. The powerful sword power was earth-shattering. The high priestess in the divine domain is not inferior to the heavenly sword. In Nanjiang, in front of the divine palace, the moon goddess looked at the battle in the east. Her beautiful face showed surprise. The divine domain is a realm that only gods can enter. Beside her, the rising sun demon god's eyes were serious. In the divine world today, there are no more than 5 people who can enter the divine domain, and they can only enter temporarily. There are almost none who can stay in the divine domain permanently. Brother, did you see clearly how the heavenly venerate who fought with the Son of Heaven sword's owner was defeated? The moon goddess asked seriously. The rising sun demon god shook his head. The rising sun flood god shook his head. That golden light obscured the battle. I couldn't see it clearly either. I'm worried that the high priestess will be in danger. The moon goddess looked worried. The rising sun demon god had heard this before. His eyes narrowed slightly. He should be on guard. Don't worry. While the two were talking, the two swords in the eastern divine world were clashing. In the void, the two swords clashed continuously. The aftershocks caused the sky to collapse and the earth to sink. This was a battle between the strongest swordsmen. Sword light crisscrossed, destroying heaven and earth. The two figures flew into the sky and plunged into the earth. The rumbling shook the sky. In the eastern divine world, mountain after mountain was flattened by the sword light. The scene was shocking. For thousands of years, my Tao is limitless. The battle reached its climax. The Son of Heaven sword's owner knocked his opponent away with a sword and pointed his finger at the sword. A surge of sword pressure swept out. The Son of Heaven sword style was unprecedented. The strongest sword faced the strongest opponent in this life. The Son of Heaven sword's owner's body shone with golden light and his sword pressure swept through the 9 heavens. At this moment, the golden sword light spread rapidly in the void. Everywhere it passed, even the sky was dyed gold. Sword technique, judgment of heaven and earth. Before the ultimate move, Ning Chen's expression didn't change. The celestial end shift and the destructive sword pressure swept out as well. In an instant, a sword light that pierced through the sky appeared in the void. It was ferocious and earth-shattering. Everyone watched as the two sword pressures clashed again. With a loud rumble, the void above the eastern divine world was turbulent and swallowed the two. 8 perils, wind calamity. The Son of Heaven sword's owner's figure flashed through the collapsing space. The ultimate move of the Son of Heaven battle demonstration appeared again. Golden light flashed around Ning Chen, turning into a storm that swallowed everything. 4 symbols sealing the gods. Forced to the limit, Ning Chen's phoenix origin rolled out. His white hair instantly turned blood red. Phoenix ancestral awakening, his body reached the limit again. Heavenly dragon shock. Ning Chen swung his sword. The sound of the sword reverberated rhythmically, dispersing the storm of sword will around him. The moment the move was broken, Ning Chen's figure flashed out. With extreme speed, he suppressed the Son of Heaven sword's owner. Ning Chen switched from defense to offense. His attacks were like a storm. His battle prowess was astonishing. His speed was full, and his killing intent was endless. The Son of Heaven sword's owner swung his sword to block the attack and retreated again and again. The situation wasn't good. The Son of Heaven Sword's owner snorted coldly. He opened his eyes and golden light shone brightly. The golden eyes could see through the origin of heaven and earth, seeing through the foundation of the move. The opponent's movements immediately slowed down. Flying Swan technique. The situation of the battle changed. Ningchen shouted. Demonic chi surged around him. The 9 underworlds battle technique appeared again. With the support of the Flying Swan, his attacks reached the peak again. Fast, so fast that it was unbelievable. In the collapsing space, Ningchen stood in the deity domain. With the support of the 9 underworlds battle technique, his speed became faster and faster. Gradually, time in the battle slowed down again, as if it had stopped. This amazing scene appeared again after 100 years. The Phoenix's extreme speed surpassed the limits of time and space, causing the surrounding time to gradually stop. Chapter 1450. In the Eastern divinity world, the 2 strongest swordsmen in the world were fighting to the death. Their combat power was pushed to the limit. The sword of the heavenly realm had never been seen before. Its power was shocking. The sword of the divinity realm was indestructible. It opened the boundaries of time and space. Without turning back, the sword went berserk. In the collapsing space, Ningchen's speed surpassed the limits of time and space. The flow of time around him stopped. Ningchen took a step forward and merged with his sword. He instantly appeared before the sword master of Heaven's Son. The sword of death was merciless. The celestial ending sword was ferocious. It tore through time and space and slashed at his opponent. Do you think I would be unprepared for the same move? At this moment, the sword master of Heaven's Son, who was trapped in the law of space, suddenly spoke. The golden light around him shone brightly. He turned into a dazzling golden sword and slashed at his opponent. The sudden counterattack came without warning. Ningchen seemed to have been prepared. He took a step forward and dodged the sword light. 10 feet away, Ningchen looked at the golden sword in front of him. A cold look flashed across his face. It was this sword that Empyrean Qingyu was defeated under this sword. Wind and thunder change. Ningchen swung his sword. Wind and thunder intertwined as he charged at the sword master of Heaven's Son. When the wind and thunder closed in, the sword master of Heaven's Son waved his golden sword. The wind and thunder immediately dissipated without any ripples. At this moment, the 4 rulers of the divinity world looked at the battle in the distance with shock. What's wrong? In the southern border of the divinity world, in front of the sunrise divine palace, the moon goddess saw the shock on her brother's face and asked, "The sword of the divinity world, Kunwa." The sunrise flood god suppressed the shock in his heart and said in a low voice, "This sword was lost before the primordial age. How could it be in his hands?" Come on. The moon goddess's eyes were filled with shock. The sword that was born with the divinity world? Not good. This sword was equivalent to the history of the divinity world. Any law in the divinity world was equivalent to nothing before this sword. Now that the sword master of Heaven's Son had this sword, as long as he was in the divinity world, he was almost invincible. I didn't expect the Son of Heaven Sword's owner to have hidden himself so deeply. In front of the Shui Yun Imperial Palace in the northern realm of the God Realm, the Water Empress looked at the battle in the east with narrowed eyes. With this Kunwa sword, even if the Son of Heaven Sword's owner had not entered the heavenly realm, he would still have the strength to fight against them. However, this person could endure for so long and dared to submit to others. He was indeed extraordinary. In the Eastern Divine Realm, above the Divine Court, the Lord of the Divine Court had an unusually gloomy look on his face. He had been too careless in nurturing a tiger. A hero of a generation, the son of Heaven Sword Master. The Demon Lord commented on the Buddha Mountain in the Western world of Buddhism. Not everyone is able to endure for so long. While the 4 sovereigns were still in shock over the son of Heaven's Sword Master's astonishing feat, the battle in the eastern region of the divine world grew even more intense. The Son of Heaven's Sword Master had summoned the divine world's #1 divine artifact, the Kunwa sword. The divine sword was invincible. All of Ningchen's moves were broken. Even the laws of time and space were meaningless in front of Kunwu. The three moves collided. The divine sword could shock the world. The laws of heaven and earth around Ningchen were all cut off by the Kunwu divine sword and completely disappeared. The unprecedented divine artifact was so powerful that it was shocking. In addition, the Son of Heaven's sword master had already entered the heaven realm. Man and sword as one, they were invincible. In the collapsed spacetime, Ningchen once again fell into a disadvantageous position against the Son of Heaven's swordmaster who was supported by a divine artifact. His attacks were thwarted and the situation was completely reversed. Strange 8 perils, 1000 autumn sword. The situation was reversed. The Son of Heaven's sword master shouted and divine light shot up into the sky. In the collapsed spacetime, a golden sword light broke through the restraints of heaven and earth and directly pierced through the sun and moon. The God Punisher move was earth-shattering. In front of Kunwu, the laws of the divine world were all destroyed. It was difficult to resist. In front, Ningchen's empty eyes looked at the golden sword light that shot up into the sky. His expression became serious. Nirvana. Nirvana appeared again. The sword light was magnificent. In Ningchen's hand, the celestial extinction shift swept out. Thousands of sword lights intersected and slashed towards the Son of Heaven's sword master. Boom! In an instant, the two sword lights collided with each other. In the shattered spacetime, Kunwu slashed through heaven and earth, broke through all laws, and crashed into the Nirvana sword. There was no suspense in the outcome. The Kunwu sword light slashed through thousands of swords. In the divine world, no one could defeat it. The Kunwu sword light slashed down. At the moment of life and death, Ningchen's figure turned illusory. In an instant he appeared 100 feet away. Standing in the divine world, Ningchen's body sensed danger and instinctively dodged. The moment Ningchen dodged, a sword light brushed past him and directly cut through space-time, drawing a shocking sword mark between heaven and earth. In the imminent danger, Ningchen felt the collapsing laws of heaven and earth around him and his expression became more and more serious. This sword was really too shocking. For 1,000 years, he had seen countless divine weapons, but it was the first time he saw such a powerful divine artifact. To a certain extent, it had even surpassed the 4 immortal swords. To be able to destroy any laws of heaven and earth, what kind of existence was this sword? High Priest. At this moment, in the Eastern divine world, a familiar voice sounded. Don't fight. The sword in the Son of Heaven sword's hand is called Kunwu. It is a divine artifact that coexists with the divine world. Before Kunwu, any laws of the divine world are equivalent to nothing. You can't beat him now. Leave quickly. Moon Goddess used all her strength to send a voice transmission to Zhenming across endless spacetime, reminding him to retreat quickly. Noisy! In the collapsing spacetime, the Son of Heaven sword's face turned cold when he heard the voice transmission from Nanjiang. He slashed with his sword, and a golden sword light broke through the sky. Across endless spacetime, the sword light broke through the restrictions of space and swept directly toward Nanjiang. It was an earth-shattering sword strike that had traveled hundreds of millions of kilometers from the eastern god realm to the southern border. In front of the Sunrise Divine Palace, Moon Goddess' body trembled as a strong sense of danger rose from the bottom of her heart. She wanted to dodge, but found that she could no longer move. At this moment, the golden sword light broke through the sky from afar. Its unparalleled power cut through spacetime, threatening to kill. At this critical moment, the Sunrise Flood God's figure flashed and blocked in front of Moon Goddess. He turned over his palm and poured out his Yuan Qi. The god that ruled Nanjiang was facing the #1 sword of the divine world today. His flames surged wildly as he blocked the Kunwu sword Qi. With a rumble, the Kunwu sword Qi was indestructible. Even the flames could not stop the might of Kunwu. The Sunrise Flood God saw this and frowned slightly. He opened his hands and a golden sun rose into the sky. God's domain surpassed the laws of the divine world and formed its own Tao. The sun blocked the sword power, and the aftershock rippled out in all directions. In front of the Sunrise Divine Palace, the Flood God waved his hand to disperse the aftershock. He looked to the east and said coldly, Son of Heaven Sword's owner, you have crossed the line. In the east, the Son of Heaven Sword's owner snorted and did not attack the Sunrise Divine Palace again. The Sunrise Flood God was indeed the ruler of Nanjiang. His strength was unfathomable. In the collapsing space-time, after several exchanges, Ning Chen gradually understood the power of the Kunwu sword. His expression became more and more serious. It could cut through the laws of heaven and earth, and even the laws of space and time. This was troublesome. In front of him, the Son of Heaven Sword's owner looked over at the sword in the young man's hand and said indifferently, "If I am not wrong, the sword in your hand is one of the 4 immortal swords, right?" Ning Chen ignored him and pointed with his left hand. Sword chi swept up the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and broke through the air. Useless move. The Son of Heaven Sword's owner waved his sword and directly dispersed the sword chi. He said indifferently, "Leave the sword and I will spare your life." Ning Chen raised the hand holding the sword and said calmly, "Come and get it yourself." The Son of Heaven Sword's owner sneered and his figure flashed forward. The 2 swords clashed, and the sound reverberated through the void. Facing the mighty Kunwu sword, Ning Chen abandoned the competition of foundation and laws and decided to use his sword to decide the victor. The 2 swords clashed, returning to the most primitive battle. Ning Chen used strange footwork, and his sword was like lightning. Every move was merciless. Sword moves clashed, returning to the basics. After 10 moves, they were evenly matched. In the battle, the Son of Heaven Sword's owner frowned. He stepped forward, and his divine essence rose. He wanted to continue suppressing Ning Chen with his cultivation base and sword. The Son of Heaven Sword's owner retreated, and Ning Chen's figure continued to press forward. Blood-colored threads appeared on the extinguishing immortal sword like the sharpest blade, sealing the battle. Among the 4 great immortal swords, Extinguishing Immortal was famous for its transformations. Today, in an absolutely disadvantageous battle, Ning Chen once again used Extinguishing Immortal's might. Blood-colored threads crisscrossed, sealing the battle. The Son of Heaven Sword's owner frowned and stepped lightly, wanting to leave the battle. Among the thousands of blood-colored threads, Ning Chen raised his hand and pulled one. Instantly, the threads tightened and locked the Son of Heaven Sword's owner's hand. Chapter 1451. In the battle between swordsmen, the Kunwu sword displayed its power, shocking everyone. Under the crisis, Ning Chen used the Juexian transformation again. Thousands of blood-colored threads spread out, trapping the Son of Heaven Sword owner. It was a scene never seen before. In the battle, the Son of Heaven Sword owner wanted to cut open the threads around him, but he found that his arm was restrained and he couldn't move. In an instant, Ning Chen's figure flashed past. The Juexian broke through the air, mercilessly attacking. "How dare you!" As the tip of the sword closed in on him, the Sword Master of Heaven's Son of Heaven was enraged. Terrifying sword chi gushed out from his body and thousands of golden sword lights crisscrossed, blocking the tip of the Juexian sword. The Juexian was blocked and couldn't get closer. "Zhu Xian!" Ning Chen shouted. Primal chaos true essence surged and the Zhu Xian sword appeared. The sharpest sword of the 4 great swords reappeared. Both swords appeared at the same time. Ning Chen held the Zhu Xian sword tightly in his left hand and slashed down. The rumbling sounded again. The Zhu Xian slashed down and the golden sword rays collapsed. The second sword appeared. The Son of Heaven Sword owner's expression sank. His eyes glowed with golden light. He endured the pain in his arm and cut open the blood-colored threads. With a boom, the Kunwu sword blocked the Zhu Xian sword. The 2 sharpest weapons in the world clashed. Suddenly, violent sword chi spread out, leaving bloody marks on the 2. Both swords appeared. Ning Chen used the Juexian transformation to seal the battle, not giving the Son of Heaven Sword owner a chance to pull away. After more than 10 moves, the Son of Heaven Sword owner's expression sank. He couldn't use his advantage and his moves were severely restrained. Among the thousands of blood-colored threads, Ning Chen's figure kept flashing. His 2 swords were like lightning and his attacks were like a tide. The 2 strongest swords were unparalleled in sharpness and unpredictable. Now that they appeared together, They were the #1 divine weapons in the god world. In the battle, clanging sounds were endless. The intense battle had almost no changes from the beginning. At this moment, the battle was once again evened out and returned to its original state. Victory and defeat were decided by moves. 8 perils, cloud sky sacred sword. The battle changed. The Son of Heaven's sword owner shouted. The Kuan Wu sword lifted up the sky, wanting to use the power of the divine sword to break through the obstructed battle. Ning Chen felt it. Phoenix fire rose around him. The phoenix was extremely fast and instantly arrived in front of the Son of Heaven sword owner. The Zhu Xian slashed down as fast as lightning. The Son of Heaven sword owner's moves were not finished. Whoosh! The celestial sword closed in, but the Son of Heaven sword master did not dodge. He reached out and grabbed the celestial sword, using his body to block the sharp edge of the celestial sword. Fresh blood splattered, dyeing the immortal sword red. However, in that instant of obstruction, the sword sovereign's move was already completed. A heaven-shaking sword pressure engulfed the area. In the air, a golden sword descended from the sky, incomparably gigantic. In the next moment, the golden holy sword descended upon the battlefield. Its unparalleled might directly shattered the tens of thousands of blood-colored threads. When the opportunity appeared, the Son of Heaven's sword sovereign immediately retreated 1,000 feet away. Strange 8 perils, 1,000 autumns 1 sword. The battle was separated. The Son of Heaven's sword master once again displayed his unparalleled divine might. The Kun Wu sword master slashed out, causing the void to rapidly collapse. It was a battle of wits and courage, a battle of swords that was rarely seen in 1,000 years. Whether it was battle experience or sword cultivation, both of them had already reached the limits of the world. Swordsmen were fearless and faced off with life and death. Above the void, the Kunwu sword chi pierced through the air. Ning Chen's figure flashed and avoided the sword light. He stepped on the air and flew up again. Ning Chen was very clear about his own advantages and disadvantages. In this battle, his only chance of winning was to win with the most primitive moves. Similarly, the Son of Heaven's sword sovereign was clear about his own advantages. His sword pressure engulfed the area. With the might of the divine sword and the advantage of cultivation, he forcefully suppressed the opponent in front of him. In the sky above the eastern divine world, the knowing destiny sword sovereign and the Son of Heaven's sword sovereign contributed the most shocking battle of swords to the entire divine world. Exciting! On the Buddha mountain in the western world of Buddhism, the demon lord looked at the battle in the western world with a strange look in his eyes. The Son of Heaven's sword sovereign was needless to say. After hiding for so many years, he shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. What surprised him even more was that this young man who ascended from the mortal world was able to fight evenly with the Son of Heaven's sword sovereign in such a disadvantageous situation. There was no second person in the divine world who could do it. Demon Lord, Commander Yao Feng left Buddha Mountain without permission. At this moment, on the Buddha Mountain, a seductive demoness reported. Oh! Hearing this, the Demon Lord frowned slightly. After a while, he nodded lightly and said, "Understood. You may leave." The demoness accepted the order and turned around to leave. "Yao Feng, you still can't let it go?" The Demon Lord sighed and looked to the east. This Yao Yu was not the same Yao Yu. She was just a little demon who was being used by someone. In the Buddha world, a black hurricane swept past and rushed toward the east. Amitabha! At this moment, a woman descended from the sky. She looked kind and solemn, and the Bodhisattva appeared again. After 100 years, the Demon Lord and Buddha met again. They were in the same world, but their states of mind were completely different. Get lost. In the black hurricane, Yao Feng said coldly with a murderous look. Bodhisattva Ci Hang did not say anything. The pure vase in her hand flew up, and suddenly, the water of the 3 rivers poured down and swallowed the world. Seeing this, Yao Feng's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He waved his hand and summoned his demon sword. With a slash, he forcefully split the water of the 3 rivers. The Buddha and the Demon Lord fought again. The grudge that had lasted for countless years was about to be decided again. On the Buddha mountain, the demon lord saw the battle in the Buddhist land, and a cold look flashed across his face. After watching for a while, the demon lord moved and walked forward step by step. When the demon lord personally came out, the demonic clouds above the Buddha world suddenly rolled and covered the sky. On the battlefield of the Buddha world, the demon lord walked over. His terrifying demonic aura shook the world, and the world within a radius of 10,000 miles started to shake. In the battlefield, Bodhisattva Ci Heng was shocked when she saw who came. The demon lord. Yao Feng, you go first. Leave this to me. Under the demonic clouds, the demon lord looked at the battlefield below and said calmly. In the turbulent black hurricane, Yao Feng looked ashamed and bowed respectfully. Thank you, demon lord. After that, Yao Feng did not say anything else. He stepped into the air and continued to head east. The Buddha and the demon lord brushed past each other, but Bodhisattva Ci Heng did not stop them. She looked at the demon lord in the sky with a solemn expression. In the void, the demon lord's figure descended from the sky. In the demonic clouds, lightning flashed, and the demonic aura was shocking. The strongest demon, the demon lord who ruled over the Buddha world, personally faced Bodhisattva Ci Heng today. It shocked everyone. Even the Buddha world is fighting. In an instant, all the gods and demons in the god world sensed it and were shocked. In the northern region, in front of the Shui Yun imperial palace, Empress Shui Yun looked at the Buddha world in the west. Her beautiful eyes flashed. The demon lord is fighting personally? Just as everyone's attention was attracted by the battle in the Buddha world in the west, the battle of swords in the east of the god world had reached its climax. In the sky above the god world, the void had been shattered by the battle between the two. Ji Ming and the sword master of the Son of Heaven were also stained red. The battle lasted for a long time. As time passed, the strange light around Ning Chen became weaker and weaker. It was obvious that he could no longer stand in the god domain. The god domain was a realm that even gods could not step into. In the entire god world, there were no more than 5 people who could step into the god domain. There was almost no one who could stay in the god domain for a long time. The battle between the two had lasted for almost half a day. Ning Chen being able to stay in the god domain for so long had exceeded everyone's expectations. In the battle, the sword master of the Son of Heaven's eyes became brighter and brighter. He knew that as long as he could hold on until the person in front of him came out of the god domain, the battle would be over. 4 symbols divine seal, 3 light shadow body. The battle had reached the final moment. Ning Chen took a step forward and his figures suddenly split into 3. In an instant, the 3 figures appeared at the same time in the battle and rushed forward. The sword master of the Son of Heaven's expression turned serious. He flipped his palm and the undercurrent surged out. The terrifying sword aura shook, trying to stop the 3 figures from approaching. In front of the 3 figures, the phoenix body was the first to reach the sword master of the Son of Heaven's sword. The immortal slaying broke through the air and collided with the Kunwu sword aura. In the violent impact, the phoenix body flew out dozens of feet. The immortal slaying left his hand and blood stained the void. Behind, Ning Chen's main body rushed forward and slashed down with the exterminating immortal slaying. Streaks of blood-colored threads spread out and forcefully trapped the sword master of the Son of Heaven's sword. The Kunwu sword aura shook. The main body's mouth was also stained red. However, he endured the injury and was unwilling to retreat. This was the last chance. With hatred in front of him, how could such a shallow pain make Ji Ming retreat? The phoenix body and the main body were exhausted. At the end, the demon body rushed forward. In his hand, the immortal slaying sword broke through the layers of golden light and pierced through the sword master of the Son of Heaven's sword. Ugh! There was a muffled groan. The immortal slaying sword came out of the body. Blood spurted out and filled the sky. Chapter 1452. In the Eastern Divine World, the battle between swordsmen had come to an end. Knowing destiny was about to fall out of the divine world, he staked everything on one throw and used all his killing moves. The 3 bodies joined forces and took on the sword master's attack head-on. The demon body exerted its power to the extreme. Finally, the last sword pierced through the sword master's chest. It was a shocking scene. Half of the sword master's body was dyed red, and blood filled the sky. Behind him, the main body and the phoenix body suppressed their injuries and rushed forward, wanting to finish off the sword master once and for all. With his life in front of him and his heart meridians destroyed, the sword master's face contorted. He endured the pain and pushed back the demon body. At the same time, the two bodies approached and attacked again. Get lost! The sword master swung his sword, and the Kunwa divine sword exploded with shocking power, pushing the two bodies back. The Son of Heaven sword master suffered a backlash when he tried to raise his divine energy. He vomited a mouthful of blood, worsening his injuries. With his life in danger, the sword master didn't dare to fight anymore. He took a step and fled. You can't escape. In the collapsing space-time, Ning Chen's three bodies merged and turned into a phoenix, sweeping up thousands of waves of fire. It was a shocking scene. Knowing destiny chased after the sword master with all his strength, not giving him a chance to escape. In the Eastern divine world, two streams of light flew past one after another. The heavily injured sword master had lost the chance to fight back and could only flee. Behind him, Ning Chen chased. Even though there was a difference of a realm, he wasn't at a disadvantage in terms of speed. At the same time, in the divine court, the Lord of the Divine Court looked at the fleeing sword master with a cold expression. Purple lightning, bring Kunwa back to the Divine Court, the Lord of the Divine Court said. Yes. Below, a purple lightning flashed past, and the purple lightning battle god general appeared. He took a step and turned into lightning. The battle god general, who was the fastest in the divine world, was ordered to take back the number 1 divine artifact, Kunwa. In the divine world, two figures flashed through the air. Their speed was so fast that it was shocking. In order to escape, the sword master didn't care about anything else and rushed west. From sunrise to sunset, and then to the moon, Ning Chen chased him out of the eastern divine world and all the way to the heaven realm. During this period of time, the two of them had exchanged blows several times. Ning Chen had fallen out of the god domain, and his body was almost exhausted. His fighting capacity wasn't at its peak. However, the sword master of heaven, Son of Heaven, was in an even more sorry state. His heart meridian had been destroyed and he was barely able to maintain his consciousness. He didn't have much strength left to retaliate. The Son of Heaven sword master could only flee for his life, fleeing without regard for anything else. On a frigid night, Ning Chen had chased after the Son of Heaven sword's master. He scanned the area with his divine awareness, looking for the Son of Heaven sword's master. The silent night was unusually quiet. Ning Chen stood in the air above the ancient mountain range that stretched for thousands of miles. He didn't hide the killing intent on his face at all. In the primitive mountain range, the severely injured sword master of the Son of Heaven staggered as he walked among the towering mountains and precipitous ridges. His consciousness was almost blurred. In the sky, Ning Chen searched for a moment. Although he could vaguely sense the Son of Heaven sword owner's location, he was unable to determine his exact location. After searching for a while, Ning Chen lost his patience. He grasped his sword and sword intent surged from his body as he slashed down at the mountain range below. Instantly, an astonishing tremor sounded. The immortal slaying sword chi slashed down, splitting apart mountains one after another. The earth shook, and huge rocks fell like rain. In the mountain range, the Son of Heaven sword's master immediately dodged when he saw this. The moment his divine energy leaked out, Ning Chen immediately sensed it. Over there. Ning Chen's expression turned cold. He stepped in the air and slashed down with his sword. With a rumble, a huge sound spread throughout the mountains. It was a shocking scene. The mountains were split apart by the immortal slaying sword. The sword that contained Ning Chen's anger was so terrifying that it was shocking. In the towering mountains, the Son of Heaven sword's master blocked the immortal slaying sword with his sword. With a rumble, the earth collapsed. With a muffled groan, blood spurted out from the corner of the Son of Heaven sword's master's mouth. His injuries were getting worse. Strange move. With his strength almost exhausted, the son of Heaven Sword's master forcefully gathered the last of his divine energy and used his ultimate move to counterattack. At such a close distance, Ning Chen didn't expect the son of Heaven Sword's master to still have the strength to counterattack. Sensing danger, he swung his sword to block. With a rumble, the son of Heaven Sword's master's final counterattack was shockingly powerful. Ning Chen's body instantly flew out hundreds of miles and crashed into a collapsed mountain. In front, the son of Heaven Sword's master didn't look at the result. He dragged his heavily injured body and staggered forward. 100 miles away, in the collapsed mountain, Ning Chen shook off the huge rock that was pressing down on the mountain. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. At this point in the battle, both the son of Heaven Sword's master and Ning Chen were already at the point of exhaustion. No one knew who would win or lose. In this battle, the one who could survive in the end would be the final winner. Ning Chen walked out from the collapsed mountain and released his divine sense to continue chasing the son of Heaven Sword's master. In the almost destroyed primitive mountain range, the two of them were in the final game. No one could predict whether they would live or die. At this moment, in the void, a purple lightning flashed across the night sky and rushed towards the primitive mountain range. Not long after, in the sky above the collapsed primitive mountain range, the purple lightning battle god general appeared. His exquisite body looked abnormally attractive. In the void, the purple lightning battle god general released his divine sense to search for traces of the son of Heaven Sword's master. However, in the mountain range, the aftermath of the battle was still shaking. The purple lightning battle god general could only sense the approximate location of the son of Heaven Sword's master. After pondering for a moment, the purple lightning battle god general's figure flashed and rushed towards the mountain range below. In the mountain range that stretched for thousands of miles, the three of them all retracted their aura and waited for the other party to kill them in one blow. The cold night was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The three of them walked in the mountain range and released their divine sense. They were abnormally cautious. Among the three of them, the purple lightning battle god general was at the peak of his cultivation and combat strength. Therefore, his speed was the fastest. His figure shuttled like lightning as he searched one mountain after another. The night grew darker and darker. In the mountain range, it was so dark that one couldn't even see one's fingers. However, the three of them were all grand cultivators who stood at the peak of the god realm. Even in the night, their movements were not restricted at all. At this moment, in the depths of the mountain range, a shocking tremor sounded. The birds and beasts were frightened and flew in all directions. Ning Chen felt it and his expression turned serious. He took a step and immediately rushed towards the depths of the mountain range. Under the night sky, in the depths of the mountain range, the purple lightning battle god general, who had been searching for a long time, finally met the son of Heaven Sword's master. Without any nonsense, he attacked with a killing move. The son of Heaven Sword's master, who was already at the end of his life, encountered a killing formation and immediately fell into a dangerous situation. After a few exchanges, he was heavily injured again. Sudden thunder. Thunder surged around the purple lightning battle god general. With a light shout, he stretched out his slender hand and thunder broke through the sky. The son of Heaven Sword's master blocked with his sword. The descendant self-sword slashed apart the thunder, but it couldn't block the force. With a loud bang, the son of Heaven Sword was stained with blood and his body flew out a few hundred feet. The purple lightning battle god general took another step. His body was like thunder, shining with purple light. Boom! Another shocking collision sounded. The purple lightning battle god general punched the son of Heaven Sword's master's chest and heavily injured him again. Even before entering the heaven realm, the son of Heaven Sword's master didn't put the purple lightning battle god general in his eyes. Now, he had become an inescapable talisman that mercilessly pressed for his life. In the mountain range, ancient trees fell one after another and were burned into charcoal by the thunder. Facing the exhausted son of Heaven Sword's master, the purple lightning battle god general didn't hold back at all. Under the dark night sky, a purple lightning constantly rushed past. It was unbelievably fast. Boom! After bitterly holding on for a long time, the Son of Heaven Sword's master finally couldn't block the Purple Lightning Battle God General's violent attacks. A flaw appeared in his attack and defense. In the blink of an eye, the Purple Lightning Battle God had arrived. His slender hand pierced through the Son of Heaven Sword owner's chest. The splattering blood was so glaring, but the Son of Heaven Sword sovereign wasn't shocked. Instead, he laughed. His blood-stained face revealed a sinister smile. Die! The Crown Prince Swordmaster raised his hand and grabbed the Purple Lightning Divinity General's arm. Using himself as a guide, he fought for a chance to survive. The Son of Heaven Sword's owner was an ambitious and ruthless person. Under the night sky, a spurt of blood filled the sky. The divine sword slashed down, and the Purple Lightning Battle God General had no time to dodge. A terrifying sword wound appeared on his chest, from his left shoulder to his right rib. It was so deep that his bones could be seen. The sword chi entered her body and destroyed half of her life force. The Purple Lightning Battle God General's body went limp and he was on the verge of death. After severely injuring his opponent in one move, the Son of Heaven Swordmaster's last bit of strength was used up. He stumbled and spat out another mouthful of blood. Suddenly, the Sword Sovereign's expression froze and fear appeared on his face. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Ning Chen, who had been sitting on the mountain and watching the tigers fight for a long time, suddenly appeared behind the Son of Heaven Sword's owner without any warning. The Son of Heaven Sword's owner hurriedly turned around, but it was already too late. The celestial slaying sword slashed across and sealed the Son of Heaven Sword's owner's throat. Before his soul could escape, Ning Chen grabbed it. Ah! In the next moment, a shrill scream sounded under the night sky. It was extremely horrifying. Demonic chi surged around Ning Chen and completely engulfed the Son of Heaven Sword's owner. The Kunwu sword fell and stabbed into the ground. After a great battle, the divine sword retracted and its light dimmed. Ning Chen waved his hand and put away the Kunwu sword. He turned around and was about to leave. Save me. At this moment, an extremely weak voice sounded behind him. It was a cry for help. A dozen steps away, Ning Chen stopped and turned around. His empty eyes looked at the severely injured woman in front of him. His expression was indifferent. He knew this woman. She was the Purple Lightning Battle God General of the Divine Court. Her strength was extraordinary. When they fought in the Divine Court, she had brought them a lot of trouble. Save me! In the pool of blood, Purple Lightning weakly cried for help. Her gradually dimming eyes were full of unyielding struggle. After a moment of silence, Ning Chen stepped forward. In the end, he didn't just sit and watch. There was no enmity between him and Purple Lightning. The only difference was their standpoints. However, what really moved him was this woman's desire to live. Even ants wanted to live, let alone a living person. There was only hope for everything in the world if one was alive. Ning Chen stopped. Just as his vital essence was about to enter, it was blocked by Purple Lightning's divine armor. The broken divine armor was almost completely destroyed by the Kunwu sword. However, the remaining power was still protecting its owner. Ning Chen frowned. His chaotic vital essence surged. He grabbed the broken divine armor and pulled it off Purple Lightning's body. After the divine armor left her body, a large area of white skin was exposed. Purple Lightning was shocked and subconsciously wanted to resist. Don't move! Ning Chen's face turned cold as he shouted. Chapter 1453. In the ancient mountain range of the Heaven Realm, the Son of Heaven Sword owner died in battle. Ning Chen took the Kunwu sword. When he was about to leave, he was moved by Purple Lightning's desire to survive. Knowing destiny had been bathed in blood all his life. He had experienced countless life and death situations. He knew better than anyone how desperate it was to be on the verge of death. Was he afraid? Of course he was. No one could escape from death. Ning Chen arrived in front of Purple Lightning and tore off his divine armor. After the armor was removed, Purple Lightning's fair skin was exposed. It was as clear as jade. Purple Lightning cried out softly. Driven by a woman's instinct, she wanted to protect the view in front of her chest. However, under the serious injury, Purple Lightning could no longer move. She could only expose her skin in front of others. "Don't move!" Ning Chen shouted coldly, stopping the former from moving. He raised his right hand and formed a sword with his fingers. His sword intent rose rapidly. Hearing the former's cold shout, Purple Lightning trembled and didn't dare to move again. In the collapsed ancient mountain range, Ning Chen healed Purple Lightning with a serious expression. The horrible sword wound on Purple Lightning's body spread from her left shoulder to her right rib. Her flesh and blood were exposed, and her bones were visible. Above the wound, the Kunwu sword intent lingered and was still devouring Purple Lightning's vitality. Ning Chen formed a sword with his right hand and dispelled the sword intent with his sword intent to stop the injury from worsening. The sword intent hit the wound, and a sharp pain came. Purple Lightning let out a muffled groan, unable to bear the pain. "Don't move. Hold it." Ning Chen's expression became more and more serious. While helping Purple Lightning dispel the Kunwu sword intent on the wound, he shouted in a deep voice. "Okay." Purple Lightning endured the pain and responded with a grunt. He used the last of his strength to force himself to not let his body move around. The Kunwu sword intent was so strong that even someone as strong as Ning Chen took a long time to completely dispel the sword intent on Purple Lightning's wound. After nearly half an hour, Purple Lightning's body was soaked in sweat, and her face was as pale as a white paper. After dispelling the sword intent on Purple Lightning's body, Ning Chen turned his sword into a palm. The chaotic genuine energy surged and penetrated into Purple Lightning's body. As the primal chaos true essence entered his body, the wound on Purple Bolt's chest healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before long, it had already recovered to its original state. However, although the external injuries had healed, Zidian's severely injured internal organs still needed time to recuperate. Ning Chen could only temporarily suppress his injuries, but he could not help him completely recover. After a long time, Ning Chen withdrew his hand, and his face revealed a look of exhaustion. First, he had engaged in a fierce battle with the Sword Master of Heaven's Son of Heaven. Then, he had pursued the Sword Master of Heaven's Son of Heaven until now. Ning Chen was already extremely exhausted. Now that he was treating Purple Lightning's injuries, his body was already at its limit. "Thank you." Purple Bolt could also see the exhaustion on the white-haired man's face. Ning Chen was so tired that he didn't have the energy to say anything else. He sat to the side and leaned against the rock behind him, panting heavily. Purple Lightning tried to tidy up his clothes, but he accidentally pulled on his internal injuries. He was in so much pain that he almost cried. "I advise you not to move." Ning Chen said tiredly, "The injuries to your internal organs are very serious. I don't have the strength to heal you now. You'll have to endure the pain if I tear open your wounds again." Hearing this, Purple Lightning was so scared that she didn't dare to move. Even if she was a Heaven Realm expert, she was no different from a mortal when it came to life and death. The night was getting darker. Under the silent night, neither of them said anything. Purple Lightning half leaned against the rock, and her heart was more or less nervous. A single man and a single woman, and she was seriously injured. She didn't have the slightest strength to resist. She knew how attractive her body was to men. She wasn't a fool. Moreover, she didn't have many clothes to cover her body. In the silent night, you could hear a pin drop. The quieter the night, the more nervous Purple Lightning was. Time slowly passed. Beside Purple Lightning, Ning Chen was so tired that he fell into a deep sleep. His breathing gradually stabilized. Sensing this, Purple Lightning was startled. Did he fall asleep? After recovering some of her strength, Purple Lightning carefully sat up straight. She looked at the white-haired young man beside her. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. In the past 100 years, she had seen him 3 times. Each time they met, it was on the battlefield. Every time they met, this young man would become much stronger. She could see that this young man wasn't too old. Compared to those old monsters in the God realm who had lived for countless years, this young man's cultivation time was nothing. However, the vicissitudes of life on his body were so heavy that it was as if he couldn't stand up straight. At this moment, a cold wind blew past. A fallen leaf fell from the sky. The moment it touched Ning Chen's face, a powerful sword intent exploded and directly cut the leaf into pieces. Seeing this, Purple Lightning was startled. She didn't dare to move at all. After observing for a moment, she found that the young man in front of her didn't wake up. Purple Lightning's face flashed with surprise. Was it just a natural reaction of his body? In the sky, the cold moon moved west. Dawn was approaching. At the darkest moment of the world, Ning Chen woke up. The strength in his body gradually recovered. Seeing that he woke up, Purple Lightning immediately withdrew her gaze. She didn't dare to look at him again. How long have I slept? Ning Chen stood up. His empty eyes looked at the woman beside him and asked. 2 hours, Purple Bolt replied nervously. Hearing this, Ning Chen's phoenix fire spread out from his body. He was ready to leave. You're leaving? Purple Lightning saw this and hurriedly asked. Yes, I still have something to do, Ning Chen said calmly. Can you take me with you? Purple Lightning looked at the quiet primitive mountains around her and asked with a pleading expression. Ning Chen frowned and nodded slightly. Phoenix fire spread out from his body and engulfed Purple Lightning. Then he rushed toward the eastern god realm. Under the night sky, the phoenix sped across the sky, leaving a dazzling red light in the sky. The phoenix's extreme speed was astonishing. In the east, dawn arrived. The first rays of the morning sun shone on the two people. In the phoenix fire, Purple Lightning looked at the young man beside her. She was even more surprised. So fast. She was good at speed. However, compared to the young man beside her, she was still lacking. The first rays of dawn were so warm that they scattered the cold of the night. Looking at the eastern god realm in front of her, Purple Lightning gradually calmed down. She was finally back. In just one short night, it was like a dream. She almost never came back. Thinking of this, Purple Lightning looked at the young man beside her. Her heart was filled with gratitude. At that time, she was really in despair. She didn't think that he would come back to save her. In the sky above the eastern god realm, the phoenix sped past faster and faster. Ning Chen's face was obviously anxious. He sped up and rushed toward the place where he fought with the sword master of the Son of Heaven's sword. He was too careless. How could he fall asleep? A man was still there. Although Black Fox was protecting her, he still couldn't be at ease. In the sky above the Son of Heaven's sword sect, the collapsed space-time gradually recovered. After a great battle, it was full of devastation. When the sky was bright, phoenix fire spread out in the west. Ning Chen rushed over. Black Fox. Ning Chen opened his mouth and shouted loudly. However, there was no response in the silent void. The entire world was empty. There was no one in sight. Are you looking for someone? Purple Lightning asked. Ning Chen ignored her. He released his divine sense to search for Black Fox's aura. However, after searching for a long time, Ning Chen still couldn't feel Black Fox's aura. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. At this moment, Ning Chen's expression suddenly froze. He looked down with his empty eyes. Below, under the collapsed Son of Heaven's peak, a broken tail was buried in the mountain rocks. It was as black as ink. Ning Chen felt it. He stepped in the air and flew down the Son of Heaven's peak. After a moment, Ning Chen appeared under the Son of Heaven's peak. He waved his hand to shake away the collapsed mountain and took the broken tail. On the black broken tail, the blood was still warm. It was obvious that it had been cut off not long ago. The Divine Court. Ning Chen's face flashed with anger. Black Fox's strength was no less than a heaven realm supreme. In the Eastern Divine Realm, only the Divine Court had the strength to take Black Fox away. If you want to exchange for that woman and Black Fox, bring the Kunwu sword to the Divine Court. At this moment, in the sky, a majestic voice echoed between heaven and earth. When Purple Lightning heard this voice, he was obviously shocked. Divine Master! Under the collapsed Son of Heaven's peak, Ning Chen clenched his fists. His killing intent was bone-chilling. Don't be impulsive. Purple Lightning immediately stepped forward and grabbed his arm. He said anxiously, "If you go now, you will die." Ning Chen looked away. His empty eyes were without any color. He said in a cold voice, "You are the divine war general of the divine court. If I take you as a hostage, I don't know if the divine court master will hesitate." Purple Lightning was shocked when he heard this. He subconsciously loosened his grip. After a moment, Purple Lightning was silent. He shook his head gently and said, "No." She knew how ruthless the divine master was. He would never compromise or be soft-hearted because of her. Ning Chen's expression became colder and colder. He sat down cross-legged and focused on healing. Purple Lightning stood aside with a complicated expression. As the divine war general of the divine court, how should she choose? From early morning to the middle of the day, Ning Chen's chaotic vital essence kept surging. He crazily absorbed the surrounding spiritual qi of heaven and earth to suppress the injuries in his body. The eternal demon body was operating to the extreme. Demonic qi filled the air and almost merged with the chaotic vital essence. After a full 6 hours, Ning Chen opened his eyes. His terrifying aura spread out. It was abnormally powerful. He temporarily suppressed his injuries and let his strength return to the peak. Ning Chen did not stay any longer. He got up and was about to rush to the divine court. "Wait." At this moment, Purple Lightning said softly. Ning Chen heard this and frowned slightly. He said, "If you want to stop me now, I won't be merciful." "No, I will go with you. I am familiar with the location of the divine court. Maybe I can save the person you want to save without alarming the divine master," Purple Lightning said seriously. Ning Chen pondered for a moment and nodded. He said, "I will trust you this time." He could feel that Purple Lightning's injuries were still very serious. If she lied to him, he would not be gentle with her. "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, Phoenix fire rose around Ning Chen again. He rushed toward the divine court with Purple Lightning. In the divine court, on the high throne, the divine court master stood quietly. He looked at the chaotic realm in front of him. Coldness flashed across his dignified face. He must get Kunwu, no matter the price. Chapter 1454. At the East Heaven Gate of the Divine Court, the Phoenix flew past at such a fast speed that no one could react in time. The divine generals guarding the East Heaven Gate didn't have time to stop it. They only saw a flash of sword light, and blood splattered everywhere. The fact that a man was taken away completely touched knowing Destiny's bottom line. Sword light circled around his body, and wherever he went, no one was left alive. From the East Heaven Gate all the way to the Divine Court, no one who saw the two of them survived. "The prison is on the left. Your friend might be locked up there," Purple Lightning reminded him along the way based on his understanding of the Divine Court. Ning Chen nodded. His figure flashed and rushed towards the heavenly prison. The prison of the Divine Court was heavily guarded by divine generals. It was as if they knew in advance that someone would come to break them out. The number of guards was shocking. In the middle of the heavy guards, a fire phoenix flew over from afar. Sword will surged around it, and it crashed into the divine generals guarding the prison. It was a shocking scene. The phoenix was extremely fast, and sword light crisscrossed the sky. Hundreds of divine generals exploded in the sword light, and their corpses flew all over the sky. In front of the prison, Ning Chen's figure appeared. He looked at the gate made of gold and stone in front of him. Immortal slaying appeared in his hand, and he slashed it down. The sharpest immortal sword in the world was invincible. The sword fell and directly cut open the gate of the Divine Court's prison. The door of the prison was destroyed, and the golden stones were flying everywhere. Ning Chen walked in, and behind him, Purple Lightning followed. "Be careful. This place is filled with traps and formations," Purple Bolt warned. Ning Chen nodded. Sword light covered his body, forming a protective barrier around him. As soon as the two walked into the prison, a dim light rose in the prison. Thousands of cold arrows pierced through the air, blocking all escape routes. Each arrow glowed with a dim light. The arrows were coated with poison, and could kill once they touched blood. Ning Chen sensed it, and the sword light around him surged, blocking thousands of cold arrows. Behind him, Purple Lightning followed closely, following the man in front of him into the depths of the prison. In Ning Chen's hand, the immortal slaying sword emitted a powerful evil aura. The sword pressure spread out, frightening even gods and Buddhas. "Master, help!" At this moment, a weak voice sounded from the depths of the prison, begging for help. The familiar voice was now so weak that it was almost inaudible. Ning Chen sensed it and took a step back, rushing forward. In the heavenly prison, formation runes were constantly awakening. However, the immortal slaying sword was indestructible. Everywhere it passed, hundreds of formations were destroyed. In order to save Ah Man, he broke into the prison and no one could stop him. Behind Ning Chen, brilliant light sprinkled down. The great formations were destroyed one after another, unable to stop his advance. Finally, after passing through many obstacles, Ning Chen arrived at the deepest part of the prison. In front of him, the black fox was trapped in the crisscrossing light of 100 feet. The figure arrived. His empty eyes looked at the light prison in front of him, and his expression turned cold. "Be careful. This light prison is specially used to imprison heavenly venerable level prisoners. It's almost indestructible." Purple Lightning looked at the light prison holding Black Fox and said with a solemn expression. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes. Without saying anything, he waved his hand to summon the Kunwu Divine Sword and slashed forward. In an instant, the Kunwu Divine Sword collided with the 1,000 feet of light. An intense tremor resounded, and the 1,000 feet of light shattered. This was a shocking scene. Behind him, Violet Lightning was shocked. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How could it be broken so easily? The Kunwu Divine Sword lives up to its name. At this moment, a dazzling light shone in the void. A half-naked, majestic and domineering figure appeared. He was surrounded by dragon chi and was abnormally powerful. "Divine Master!" Violet Lightning exclaimed when he saw who it was. Ning Chen also felt the powerful aura in the void. A cold expression flashed across his face. He said, "Lord of the Divine Court, we meet again. You broke into the Divine Court twice in 100 years. Young man, I admire your courage." The Lord of the Divine Court looked at the white-haired young man in front of him and said calmly, "The person you want is here. Hand over the Kunwu Divine Sword, and I'll let you go." "Lord of the Divine Court, your words count," Ning Chen said coldly. "A monarch's words are not a joke," the Lord of the Divine Court said calmly. Ning Chen looked at the Lord of the Divine Court in front of him with his empty eyes and said in a low voice, "This is the Divine Court. If you go back on your words, I won't be able to leave alive. How can I trust you?" The Lord of the Divine Court looked at the woman behind Ning Chen and said calmly, "You can give the Kunwu Divine Sword to Violet Lightning. After you leave safely, Violet Lightning will give the Kunwu Divine Sword to me." Hearing this, Ning Chen nodded lightly and said, "Sure." Then, Ning Chen reached out and handed the Kunwu Divine Sword to Violet Lightning without any hesitation. Violet Lightning took the Kunwu Divine Sword and was slightly stunned. After sending the Kunwu Divine Sword out, Ning Chen stepped forward and waved his hand to disperse the collapsed light prison. He then took Black Fox out. "Where's Ah Man?" Ning Chen looked at Black Fox and asked calmly. Black Fox roared in a low voice. Black fog surrounded him and released the woman who had risked her life to protect him. "Thank you." Ning Chen felt that Ah Man was unharmed in the black fog and said calmly, "After we leave here, I'll set you free." Black Fox trembled and responded with a low roar. "Let's go." Ning Chen didn't say anything else. He turned and walked out of the prison. Violet Lightning glanced at the Divine Master in the void. A solemn look flashed across her beautiful eyes. She stepped forward and followed. 2 people and 1 fox walked out of the prison and walked out of the Divine Court. Behind them, tens of thousands of divine soldiers and divine generals followed. The scene was extremely tense. Outside the East Heaven Gate, the 2 people walked out. Violet Lightning stopped and looked at the white-haired youth with a complicated expression. "Mr. Ning, I can only send you here." Ning Chen nodded and said, "You can go back." Then, Ning Chen left the Divine Court with Black Fox. Behind them, Violet Lightning looked at the departing figure and sighed softly in her heart. At this moment, Multicolored light filled the void. The Lord of the Divine Court walked out and said, "Violet Lightning, give the Kunwa Divine Sword to me." Violet Lightning respectfully accepted the order and stepped forward. The Lord of the Divine Court raised his hand. A powerful suction force came out and took the Divine Sword from Violet Lightning's hand. With the Kunwa Divine Sword in his hand, the Lord of the Divine Court's eyes flashed coldly. At his command, the soldiers surged like waves. The divine soldiers who had been lying in ambush rushed out from all directions to stop Ningchen, who was about to leave. "Divine Master!" Violet Lightning was shocked when she saw this. "Men, capture Violet Lightning too," the Lord of the Divine Court said coldly in the void. In front of the many divine soldiers and divine generals, 2 divine warriors stepped forward and captured Violet Lightning. "Lord of the Divine Court, you broke your promise." Outside the Divine Court, Ningchen stopped. His hollow eyes swept across the divine soldiers and divine generals around him. "I have already let you go as promised. How can I break my promise?" The Lord of the Divine Court said coldly in the void. "Divine Master!" The 2 divine warriors' killer moves came close. Violet Lightning's beautiful face flashed with anger. She stepped forward and turned into a thunderbolt, breaking through the void. Light of a firefly. In the void, the Lord of the Divine Court looked at the rapidly approaching Violet Lightning. A cold smile flashed across his face as he raised his hand to block Violet Lightning's attack. Violet Lightning's attack was blocked, but she refused to retreat. Her slender hand was like a sharp blade, grabbing at the Lord of the Divine Court's throat. "Violet Lightning, after so many years, are you still so naive?" The Lord of the Divine Court reached out and grabbed Violet Lightning's arm. The sound of martial bones breaking was extremely ear-piercing. The bones in her left arm were all broken. Cold sweat flowed down Violet Lightning's face, but she endured the excruciating pain. With the help of her broken arm, she twisted her body at a strange angle. With a bang, Violet Lightning slapped the Lord of the Divine Court's arm that was holding the sword, erupting with all her strength. Caught off guard, the Lord of the Divine Court felt his right arm go numb, and the divine sword fell out of his hand. Violet Lightning waved her hand and sent the divine sword away. She looked at the white-haired man in the distance and shouted with her last bit of strength, "Take the divine sword and leave. You're courting death." The Lord of the Divine Court was furious. He slapped Violet Lightning's chest with a backhand. A pool of blood splattered all over the sky. Violet Lightning's figure flew out, bathed in blood. It was a shocking sight. Violet Lightning. In the distance, Ningchen's figure flashed past and snatched the divine sword. He didn't stop and rushed above the Divine Court to catch the severely injured Violet Lightning. "Little gourd, protect her life," Ningchen said and carried Violet Lightning on his back. Then, he tore off his clothes and tied her tightly behind his back. The little gourd appeared. He bit his finger and put it into Violet Lightning's mouth, temporarily protecting her last bit of life. "Go, quickly." On her deathbed, Violet Lightning looked at the white-haired man in front of her and said in a hoarse voice, "Hold on to me. I'll take you out of this encirclement." Ning Chen's divine sense swept across the thousands of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals around him. His face was full of murderous intent. As soon as he said that, Ning Chen's figure flashed. Celestial execution swept past, bringing with it a waterfall of dazzling blood. On the Divine Court, a great battle had begun. Ning Chen carried Violet Lightning on his back, and Black Fox followed behind. Facing thousands of soldiers and horses, he didn't look the slightest bit timid. If they wanted to fight, then let's fight. In the void, the Lord of the Divine Court said with a cold expression. The 6 immortal fighters took the order and rushed out, joining forces to fight against the knowing destiny state. With Tian Qi as the leader, the 6 immortal fighters of the heaven realm joined forces. Their combat strength doubled and blocked all escape routes. Around them, thousands of soldiers of the Divine Court assisted the 6 immortal fighters. The battle had reached its climax since the beginning. Ning Chen's divine consciousness swept across the surrounding people who were attacking him and said coldly, Since you want to seize Kunwu so much, how can I not let you see the power of the divine sword? After that, Ning Chen's body was surrounded by wind and snow, and the Kunwu divine sword in his hand erupted with amazing power. The next moment, the Kunwu divine sword pierced the ground. With Ning Chen as the center, the sky and earth in the east of the divine court began to collapse. The terrifying sword power directly destroyed the surrounding laws of heaven and earth. Within the range of the sword pressure, the bodies of the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals exploded. Blood poured like a waterfall and covered the entire divine court. Around them, the 6 immortal fighters were impacted by the sword pressure and were directly sent flying. It was an amazing scene. With just one sword, the siege of the divine court was broken in an instant. The 6 immortal fighters were injured, and tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were almost killed. In the void, the Lord of the divine court saw the amazing power of the Kunwu divine sword, and a blazing brilliance burst out from his eyes. He must have this sword. The divine master made a move, and the ancient fiend god reappeared. The sky above the divine court instantly darkened. Chapter 1455. Above the divine court, knowing destiny was enraged. His terrifying sword forced back thousands of soldiers and horses. The Kunwu godly sword showed amazing power. It destroyed the world around the divine court with unprecedented power. The Lord of the divine court saw the amazing power of the Kunwu godly sword, and his eyes lit up. The Lord of the divine court personally attacked. As a god-fiend who had lived from ancient times to this era, his cultivation was terrifying. In an instant, dark clouds covered the sky, and lightning fell from the sky. Amidst the lightning, the Lord of the divine court moved instantly. The absolute pressure caused the void to distort. The body of a god-fiend was extremely strong. The Lord of the divine court punched out, and it was earth-shattering. Ning Chen waved his sword to block it, but the terrifying power forced him to take half a step back. The Kunwu godly sword can cut the rules of the god world, but it doesn't work on me. As he spoke, the Lord of the divine court punched out again, and the power was several times stronger. With a bang, Ning Chen flew out 10 feet and barely stopped himself. The powerful force was stronger than any human born with divine strength. The Lord of the divine court showed the amazing physical strength of an ancient god-fiend. Ning Chen's face turned cold. He shouted, and the chaotic true essence and demonic essence around him merged quickly. The chaotic chi appeared again. He stepped out and slashed down with the godly sword. The Lord of the divine court raised his hand to block the godly sword. The Kunwu godly sword could cut the rules of the god world, but it couldn't cut through the powerful body of a god-fiend. Back off! The Lord of the divine court shouted coldly, and his power exploded, forcing the person in front of him back again. 10 steps away, Ning Chen stopped. He waved his hand and put away the godly sword. With a shout, the chaotic true essence around him catalyzed the demonic chi, and his power rose rapidly. The attack of the godly sword didn't work. Ning Chen changed his tactics and used the 9 Serenities secret technique again. Suddenly, the demonic chi in the world surged. With the help of the chaotic true essence, the power doubled. Flying Swan Formula. Ning Chen raised his hand, and a steady stream of demonic chi spread out. His power kept rising. At this moment, Ning Chen and the Lord of the divine court rushed out at the same time. Their fists and legs collided. It was a battle of physical strength. Boom! The 2 fists collided, and a violent shock wave spread out. Ning Chen took a few steps back, and the demonic chi around him rose rapidly. With the support of the Flying Swan formula, Ning Chen's strength continued to increase. 2 times, 3 times, in the void, the Lord of the divine court sensed the change in the former, and his expression turned solemn. The strength of the young man in front of him had increased so quickly. With the lesson of the Son of Heaven Sword's master, the Lord of the divine court was worried that the situation would change. He no longer hesitated and let out a long roar. Dragon chi coiled around his body. With the blessing of the divine court over countless years, the Lord of the divine court's power reached the peak again. The next moment, the Lord of the Divine Court disappeared and appeared in front of knowing Ming. The fist force blasted out, and a dragon's roar filled the sky. The instant Ningchen received the fist, his figure was sent flying hundreds of meters away. This astonishing strength far surpassed any opponent he had faced in the past. Ningchen's arms trembled and went numb, gradually losing all feeling. Having gained the upper hand, the Lord of the Divine Court did not hold back at all. He took a step forward, and his figure flashed out again. The Lord of the Divine Court closed the distance of 1,000 feet and punched out, causing the sky to collapse and the ground to sink. Ningchen tilted his head and heard the sound of the wind approaching. He turned his body and instinctively avoided the attack of the Lord of the Divine Court. After missing the attack, the Lord of the Divine Court frowned slightly. He turned his body and swept out his leg. When the attack came, Ningchen dodged again. His extremely fast reaction speed was completely out of instinct. After dodging the attack, the demonic qi around Ningchen turned into a torrent, and he used the moon worship technique again. 12 spiritual styles, sky-raising waterfall. With a boom, Ningchen slapped out with his palm. The waterfall reversed, and the Lord of the Divine Court was sent flying. 100 feet away, the Lord of the Divine Court stopped. The dragon qi around him dispersed the demonic qi, and he was unharmed. After being repelled for the first time, the Lord of the Divine Court narrowed his eyes. He looked at the looming silver brilliance around the young man in front of him, and a strange expression flashed across his face. The Divine Realm. The Lord of the Divine Court's expression gradually froze. This person had entered the Divine Realm again. Could this young man already enter and exit the Divine Realm freely? In the void, Ningchen's demonic qi surged, and a silver brilliance loomed. He stood in the Divine Realm again, and his combat power doubled. In an instant, Ningchen's figure disappeared. He rushed forward and took the initiative to attack. The power collided, and the rumbling sound echoed throughout the Eastern Divine Realm. Standing in the Divine Realm, Ningchen's speed and power had increased several times, and his attacks became fiercer. Bang! The two fists collided, and the air around them surged. Ningchen took half a step back, and this time, he was only half a step behind. With the support of the Divine Realm, Ningchen kept activating the Flying Swan art. His attack power increased rapidly, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and more shocking. The Lord of the Divine Court frowned, but he did not show any weakness. His dragon qi surged, and he faced the attack head-on. With a boom, the two of them collided for the umpteenth time. A shocking vacuum belt formed in the center of their fists, and the world was destroyed. 12 spiritual styles, splitting the sea and splitting the flood. Standing in the Divine Realm, with the support of the Flying Swan art, Ningchen's attack power increased again. His attack power was 9 times stronger, and his punch collapsed the void. In front of him, the Lord of the Divine Court saw this, and he shouted. The dragon qi around him shook the sky, and he also met the attack with an overbearing punch. Boom! The two fists collided, and the world collapsed. With the two of them as the center, the world around them collapsed rapidly. Above the 9 heavens, everything turned into nothingness. 10 times. Pushing to the limit, Ningchen's body burned with dazzling demonic flames that were like waves, swallowing the world. In the Divine Realm, 10 times the attack power was more shocking than before. Where Ningchen stood, heaven and earth could not tolerate it, and his figure almost turned into nothingness. 12 spiritual styles, 100 tides sky dome. With a roar, Ningchen raised his head and raged. Suddenly, the demonic waves in the void were like a sea, shaking the world. Feeling the shocking power erupting from the young man in front of him, the Lord of the Divine Court's expression turned solemn. He flipped his hands, and purple dragons broke through the void. Purple Star Fighting Technique, Imperial 9 Dragons Art. Facing the strongest opponent in his life, the Lord of the Divine Court showed unprecedented strength. 9 dragons came out together, and the dragon qi roared in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the two figures flashed across the void, and incomparably powerful forces collided. Boom! Everything was destroyed, and in the midst of doomsday, a terrifying crack appeared on the battlefield. It spread horizontally and vertically, reaching 1,000,000 miles away. It was an astonishing sight. Everyone in the Eastern Divine Realm was staring at the horizon with fear written all over their faces. What a terrifying power! At this moment, many experts from all over the divine world looked to the east with shock. What was going on in the Eastern Divine World? Such a shocking battle happened one after another. The sky cracked. In the Eastern Divine Realm, everyone was looking at the horizon with terrified expressions on their faces. In the 9 heavens, the sky that was cracked by the 2 punches could not close for a long time. It was abnormally shocking. Boom! At this moment, rain fell from the sky, and fog covered the sky. In the rain, 2 figures appeared, and their right arms were dripping with blood. The shocking punch was so powerful that even the 2 strongest people in the world could not withstand it. More than half of the bones in their arms were broken. Crack, crack. In the void, the sound of bones being reconstructed was ear-piercing. Hundreds of feet away, the 2 people's right arms were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was difficult to tell who was better. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the 2 people who had their right arms regenerated rushed out almost at the same time and punched at the former. Demonic flames rose around Ning Chen. Standing in the divine realm, he forcibly maintained the state of 10 times the attack. At the same time, the master of the divine realm also seemed to have a breakthrough. 9 dragons coiled around his body, and his strength was extremely shocking. After exchanging more than 10 blows, the 2 people's strength was still rising. Punch after punch, the surrounding cracks in the sky kept expanding. In the divine world, various big shots looked at the sky above the Eastern Divine World with gloomy expressions. Not good. Cracks had appeared in the divine world before, and it had been stabilized with great difficulty. Now, due to the impact of the 2 people's battle, cracks appeared again. Boom! Just as everyone was worried about the cracks in the sky above the Eastern Divine World, tribulation clouds suddenly appeared in the 9 heavens, and a terrifying heavenly might descended from the sky. The shocking heavenly might seemed to want to destroy the world. Below, the 2 people felt it, and their expressions froze. Heavenly tribulation. Where did this heavenly tribulation come from? However, before they could finish their thoughts, Ning Chen's body shone with a dazzling brilliance. The barrier of the heavenly realm that he could not break through all this time was actually shaking. Great tribulation of the heavenly realm. The master of the divine realm looked up with a gloomy expression. He actually broke through at this time. At the same time, in the southern border of the divine world, the rising sun demon god's eyes narrowed slightly. This is not good. What's wrong? Beside him, the moon goddess was puzzled. Isn't the high priest's breakthrough a good thing? That's for others. The rising sun demon god's expression was solemn. Ning Chen's main cultivation is the sword Dao, and the sword Dao is not the heavenly Dao. Therefore, it is extremely difficult to reflect the heavenly Dao into the world. Now, if he breaks through to the heavenly realm using the Dao of strength, it is equivalent to taking the wrong path. It is almost impossible for him to turn back and use the sword Dao in the future. The moon goddess's expression changed when she heard this, and her hands quickly formed a seal. What are you doing? The rising sun demon god asked sternly. I am going to stop him. The moon goddess replied. Using the divine seal as a medium, she transmitted her voice to the Eastern Divine World through endless time and space. High priest, stop. You must not undergo the tribulation. The moon goddess's urgent voice came from above the divine world. Below, Ning Chen frowned slightly when he heard this. Hurry! The moon goddess's voice came again, this time even more urgent. There is no time to explain. Below, Ning Chen no longer hesitated. He shouted and began to suppress his power. Although he didn't know what the moon goddess meant, he trusted her. A moment later, in the void above, the muffled thunder in the tribulation clouds gradually weakened. The tribulation dissipated and returned to the world. In front, the Lord of the Divine Court looked at the white-haired young man in front of him with a puzzled expression. There was actually someone who voluntarily gave up on entering the heavenly realm? After a moment of confusion, the Lord of the Divine Court's expression darkened. Without hesitation, his figure flashed and rushed in front of the young man. Boom! The incomparably powerful punch was earth-shattering. Ning Chen had just suppressed his cultivation and didn't have enough strength to recover. In a hurry, he was sent flying with a punch. 100 feet away, Ning Chen's figure stopped, and a strange light rose around him. It was so dazzling. Or did he break through? The Lord of the Divine Court looked ahead, and his eyes flashed with confusion. No, he didn't undergo the tribulation. It was impossible for him to enter the heavenly realm. Chapter 1456. In the sky above the celestial court, an earth-shattering battle broke out. The Lord of the celestial court had betrayed him, and the knowing destiny realm was enraged as he confronted the strongest person in the Eastern Divine Realm. Now that he was in the God realm, his battle prowess had multiplied. Coupled with the 9 underworlds battle technique, Ning Chen's strength had risen to an unprecedented level. He had actually attracted a heavenly tribulation. Although using strength to prove one's Tao was tyrannical, the Tao of life knowing lay in the sword. While making a choice, Ning Chen did not hesitate to give up on proving his Tao through strength and suppress his own realm. The heavenly trial disappeared. In the sky, Ning Chen's body shone with a strange light. He had not entered the heavenly plane, but he still had the power of the heavenly plane. A half-celestial lord was an existence that had not appeared for countless years. Today, Ning Chen had stepped into this realm with his strength. His cultivation had reached a certain level, but without being verified by the world, a half-celestial venerate had reappeared in the world. Up in the sky, Ning Chen's body glowed with a strange light as he fought against the #1 expert of the Eastern Divine Realm. The Lord of the Divine Court looked serious. He separated his hands, and purple dragon chi coiled around them. His astonishing power was shocking. The two silhouettes dashed out once again. This time, they were fast and powerful. Boom! Their fists collided. This time, Ning Chen didn't retreat half a step. He was on par with the Lord of the Godly Court, who had the body of an ancient god-fiend. Such world-shocking power was so terrifying. The two of them clashed with each other, causing the surrounding void to crack. The spatial crack that stretched for millions of miles was so terrifying that it continued to expand as the two fought. 9 Heaven's star-plucking hand. In the middle of the battle, Ning Chen raised his hand and slapped down with his huge palm. It was forceful and overbearing, and he used all of his strength. The Lord of the Divine Court narrowed his eyes. He flipped his hands and displayed extreme power at the same time. Purple Star Battle Arts, Heavenly Scar. Ziwei Divine Palace shook the heavens and earth. The Lord of the Divine Court punched out, and a shocking crack appeared in the void. Two extremes of strength collided, causing the heavens and earth to rumble and shake. The two sovereigns of strength displayed the most hardy battle of physical bodies. Their fists landed on each other's bodies, and their power exploded. The terrifying fist energy penetrated through their bodies, and the two's faces were dripping with sweat. They gave up on their weapons and returned to the most primitive battle of strength. Banging sounds rang out incessantly. Their fists intertwined, and their strength grew stronger and stronger. Boom! After an unknown number of moves, the two's fists landed on each other's bodies at the same time. The sound of ribs breaking rang out as their strongest might erupted. Blood covered the upper half of the body of the Lord of the Divine Court. Drops of blood dripped down, clear as day. On the other side, Ning Chen's body was also dyed red. Drops of blood dyed his plain clothes red. Around the two of them, the essence of gods and demons surged, quickly healing their heavily injured bodies. Their astonishing recovery abilities made the two of them almost immortal. In just an instant, the two figures flashed again and fought with all their strength. Now that they were evenly matched, the two of them continued to increase their battle prowess until they were almost on par with each other. At this moment, the two of them only had eyes for each other. At a certain moment, a dazzling silver light rose from their bodies, shocking the world. Divine domain. The various sovereigns of the god world were shocked as they watched the battle unfold in the eastern god world. The two of them had actually stepped into the deity domain at the same time. In the eastern divine realm, there were two people who had also entered the god realm. Silver light surged from their bodies and they were extremely dazzling. Standing in the divine realm, the Lord of the Divine Court became more and more powerful. Every punch he threw left a terrible crack in the sky. The true scars of the heavens crisscrossed and extended for hundreds of thousands of miles. After exchanging hundreds of blows, Ningchen was hit by the astral wind of the Lord of the Divine Court's fist. His body flew to the end of the crack in the sky. The Lord of the Divine Court didn't show any joy in his eyes. He stepped out and rushed forward like lightning. At the end of the crack in the sky, Ningchen stopped. Demonic chi surged around him, healing his injuries. In front of him, the Lord of the Divine Court rushed over. Not to be outdone, Ningchen's figure flashed and met the Lord of the Divine Court head-on. Their fists collided. Ningchen avoided the Lord of the Divine Court's attack and grabbed his shoulder. Like a meteor, he crashed into the Divine Court below. Roar! The Azure Dragon's roar was earth-shattering. The Azure Dragon around the two of them roared and crashed into the Divine Court. Boom! There was a shocking vibration. The two of them crashed into the Divine Court, and the entire Divine Court shook violently. The Divine Court shook. In the Divine Court's Jingtian Pavilion and Yunshao Hall, the first Divine General and Divine Consort opened their eyes at the same time. Divine essence spread out from their bodies, protecting the Jingtian Pavilion and Yunshao Hall. The younger generation will surpass us in time. In the Jingtian Pavilion, the first Divine General sighed and ignored them. He continued to organize the ancient books in the Jingtian Pavilion. Not far away, Qing Jian, who had disappeared for 100 years, sat cross-legged. Qi surged around him. His cultivation was stronger than 100 years ago. The first divine fighting general glanced at Qing Jian, who was not far away. His expression was filled with emotion. He hoped that everything was not too late. In the end, they still needed to save themselves. In Yunshao Hall, the divine consort stepped out. She looked at the battle in front of her and frowned. This young man could fight the divine master to a standstill. In the collapsed divine court, the Lord of the Divine Court's divine essence burst out, shaking off the restraints of knowing destiny. With a heavy blow, a crack appeared on the Lord of the Divine Court's chest. It was terrifying. The injury from the ancient times could no longer be healed. In front of a strong enemy, the Lord of the Divine Court didn't dare to be careless. His divine essence surged and forcibly suppressed the injury. The crack gradually disappeared. The Lord of the Divine Court clenched his fists, and thunder loomed. In the blink of an eye, the Lord of the Divine Court flashed past and arrived in front of knowing destiny. He punched with thunder. It was a terrifying scene. The Lord of the Divine Court controlled the thunder and strengthened his fist. Ningchen leaned to the side and was shocked to see the thunder fall and split the Divine Court into two. The Divine Court collapsed, and the ground tilted. Giant rocks fell from the sky as if doomsday had arrived. Close at hand, the aftermath of the thunder hit him. Ningchen felt his body go numb, and his attack was restrained. Boom! A battle between strong cultivators didn't allow a moment of hesitation. The moment Ningchen's attack slowed down, the Lord of the Divine Court reacted and punched. With a bang, Qi rushed to Ningchen's chest. Clouds roared in all directions. Ningchen flew out instantly and crashed into one hall after another. In front of Yunshao Hall, Ningchen stopped and stopped retreating. Behind him, 10 steps away, the divine consort stood quietly. Her powerful aura was no less than that of the Lord of the Divine Court. Ningchen also felt the threat behind him. He didn't move. At this moment, the divine consort raised her hand. A powerful force burst out and tore through the void, devouring knowing destiny. When the divine consort attacked, Ningchen reacted instantly and dodged the attack. At the same time, the Kunwu sword appeared in his hand. The sword of symbiosis of the divine world was extremely powerful. Seeing this, the divine consort's beautiful face changed and she hurriedly blocked it. However, The Kunwa divine sword could cut through all the rules of heaven and earth. Although the divine consort was strong, she still couldn't block this earth-shattering sword. The divine master was an ancient divine demon, but the divine consort wasn't. She couldn't withstand the power of the divine sword with her physical body. The divine sword cut through the divine essence. Before the divine consort could open her small world to block, the divine sword had already pierced through her body. Arg! A pool of blood splashed in the sky. Beautiful blood flowers fell and dyed the Yunshao divine palace red. Divine consort! In the distance, the lord of the divine court rushed over and saw this scene. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In front of Yunshao divine palace, Ningchen pulled out the divine sword. At this moment, the lord of the divine court had arrived and his fist shook the sky. Ningchen flipped his palm and demonic waves surged to meet the attack. With a rumble, the furious lord of the divine court's power was extremely terrifying. The moment Ningchen met the attack, he felt his body sink and the force under his feet dissipated. In an instant, Yunshao divine palace behind him shook violently and kept collapsing. Divine consort! The lord of the divine court held the severely injured divine consort and rushed hundreds of feet away. His voice kept trembling. Hang in there. After countless years of companionship, the two had already gotten used to each other's existence. Compared to the love between a man and a woman, this kind of companionship for thousands of years was the real eternity. In front of Yunshao divine palace, Ningchen stood with his sword. Blood kept dripping from the divine sword in his hand. The divine blood was so hot that when it fell on the stone steps, it ignited a divine flame. At this moment, in the collapsed halls, 6 divine fighting generals climbed up and struggled to stand in front of Ningchen. The head of the 6 divine fighting generals, Tianqi, was covered in vermilion red. At this moment he endured his injuries and used his divine power again. The other 5 divine fighting generals of the divine world also suppressed their injuries and rushed out to stop the cultivator in front of them. An expert who fights bravely is truly admirable. Ningchen felt the strong fighting spirit burning in the 6 divine fighting generals and said calmly. The divine sword in his hand swept across, and the divine power blocked the 9 heavens. The 6 people rushed forward, and an incomparably powerful force surged, trying to block for a moment. However, how could the divine sword be so easy to block? Kuan Wu slashed across, and the heavens and the earth fell silent. The 6 divine fighting generals propped up their own small worlds to block, but in the blink of an eye, the small worlds collapsed. Ugh! With a muffled groan, the 6 divine fighting generals flew out together. The strength of the small worlds was not as perfect as that of the rising sun demon god, so it was difficult to block the divine sword. In front of Yunshao divine palace, Ningchen's empty eyes looked at the divine court that had existed for countless years. After a moment, the divine sword in his hand directly stabbed into the ground. Scroll of Earth, Earth Destruction and Mountain Destruction. The heavenly book showed its divine power, and the divine sword supported it. Suddenly, the broken divine court shook violently and completely collapsed. Under the destruction of the divine sword, countless collapsed halls turned into dust and disappeared. Countless matrix patterns collapsed. Under the divine power of Kuan Wu, all resistance became meaningless. Not far away, the divine lord held the divine consort in his arms and looked at the collapsed divine court. At this moment, there was no longer any fighting spirit in his sad eyes. Divine Lord, let's not fight anymore. Let's go. In the arms of the divine court lord, the seriously injured and dying divine consort forced her eyes open. Looking at the destroyed divine court, her eyes dimmed and she was extremely weak. Hearing this, the divine court lord trembled. After a long time, he nodded silently. In the distance, the 6 divine fighting generals struggled to get up. Just as they were about to rush forward, they were stopped. Stop, all of you. The divine court lord said softly. Let's not fight anymore. Let's go. After that, the divine court lord did not say another word. He carried the divine consort and silently left. Seeing this, the 6 divine fighting generals were shocked. What did the Divine Lord mean? In front of the collapsed Yunshao Divine Palace, Ning Chen's empty eyes looked at the Divine Court Lord who was leaving. He did not stop him. There was no doubt that the Divine Lord was powerful. In this battle, he did not win. The ancient divine demons lived up to their reputation. In the distance, the Divine Court Lord left with the Divine Consort in his arms. Half of his body was dyed red, and he looked so miserable. Chapter 1457. In the Eastern Divine World, the Divine Court was destroyed. The Divine Master left with his divine concubine who was severely injured. It symbolized the end of an era. Ning Chen didn't kill the 6 severely injured divine battle generals. Instead, he let them live. 1,000 years had passed. Ning Chen, whose hands were stained with blood, hated killing from the bottom of his heart. Although he had to be ruthless sometimes, he didn't like to kill indiscriminately. In the void after a great battle, it was a mess. As far as the eye could see, there were cracks in space. The sky was about to be destroyed. It was shocking. Ning Chen left with the severely injured Purple Lightning and Black Fox. No one was a winner in this battle. Immortal Elder, she may not be able to hold on for much longer. The little gourd on Ning Chen's shoulder said softly. Ning Chen's body shook when he heard that. He nodded silently. On his back, Purple Lightning's vitality was disappearing bit by bit. The Divine Master's palm had completely cut off Purple Lightning's vitality. What about Heavenly Lord Qingyu? Ning Chen asked. His injuries are not light, but his life is not in danger, the little gourd replied. Ning Chen nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Behind him, the Black Fox followed quietly. Of the 9 fox tails, only 6 were left. A man and a fox descended from the sky. In the Eastern Divine World, Ning Chen put down Purple Lightning and reached out to check her injuries. His expression was slightly gloomy. Young Master Ning, help me up. Purple Lightning opened her eyes and said softly. Ning Chen nodded and helped the woman up. With the help of the man beside her, Purple Lightning looked at the divine world in front of her. She was reluctant to leave. She really didn't want to die. The divine world was so beautiful. She couldn't bear to part with it. Unfortunately, she couldn't stay. Young Master Ning, can you help me walk? Purple Lightning looked at the white-haired young man beside her and said weakly. Okay. Ning Chen nodded gently and walked forward with the woman beside him. The vast divine world was so vast that he couldn't see the end. Ning Chen walked on the divine world with Purple Lightning, enjoying the beautiful scenery of the divine world. After walking for a long time, Purple Lightning couldn't walk anymore. Exhaustion flashed in her eyes. She said, Young Master Ning, thank you. Ning Chen was silent. He didn't know what to say. At this moment, Purple Lightning turned around and looked at Black Fox. Little Fox, let that lady out. The Black Fox was confused and looked at its master in front of it. Purple Bolt said softly, I can save her. Ning Chen's body shuddered when he heard this. Black Chi surged around the Black Fox. Wild's figure appeared. She had been sleeping for 100 years, but her appearance was still the same as before. Purple Bolt stepped forward and looked at the woman before him. He sighed softly in his heart. To be honest, she was very envious of this young lady. She was able to make a person not hesitate to go through a mountain of swords and a sea of fire to rescue her. Even if he died, it was worth it. She had never met such a person in her life. Purple Bolt gently raised his hand and pressed it between the woman's eyebrows. In the next moment, the flames of life around him burned intensely like a divine sun, blazing and dazzling. Ning Chen felt it and clenched his fists. Fire of life. My life has been too tragic. To be able to get to know you in my final moments is worth it. As he spoke, Violet Lightning let out a soft cry, and the flames around him became even more dazzling. The flame of life was dazzling. Purple Lightning used up the last of his life to light up the flame of life for the sleeping Ah-Man. The heavenly Tao was heartless. The only equivalent exchange of life was life. Purple Bolt, who had already reached the heaven realm, used up the last flame of his life. In the boundless darkness, He lit up the extinguished flame of life in Ah Man's body. Gradually, Purple Bolt's body turned illusory. His flame of life burned out and his body started to dissipate. Behind him, pain flashed across Ning Chen's face. Life always made people feel so powerless. Young Master Ning, goodbye. With that, Purple Bolt's body dissipated with the wind and completely disappeared. Ning Chen went forward and supported Ah Man. Suddenly, his body trembled violently. The weak flame of life pulsed gently. Although it was weak, it was so clear. Ah Man, Ning Chen stretched out his trembling right hand and touched the woman's face. He almost couldn't believe this scene. Boom! Just at this moment, thunder rumbled in the sky. The dead were revived. The heavenly Tao didn't allow it. Ning Chen sensed it and the sword energy around his body rose again. Although he was injured, he still drew his sword and stood up. Since you've already returned, how can I let you leave? As he spoke, Ning Chen took a step and rushed into the void. He swung his sword and blocked the heavenly tribulation, for Ah Man Kun Wu was unsheathed and the sword slashed the sky. The surging sword pressure scattered the lightning in the sky. The divine sword that coexisted with the divine world was powerful. Another large crack appeared in the void and spread out for thousands of miles. After the sword strike, the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Ning Chen's figure descended from the sky and was about to leave with Ah Man, Wu Wu. The black fox growled and followed behind. You're free now. Ning Chen stopped and said calmly, You can go. Wu Wu. The black fox shook its head and continued to follow behind. Seeing this, Ning Chen frowned and said, You'll be in danger if you follow me. Wu Wu. The black fox shook its head again and refused to leave. Do as you wish. Ning Chen sighed and didn't say anything else. He took a step and left with Ah Man. The black fox let out a roar and flew with the wind, following behind. In the north of the divine world, Ning Chen rushed over with Ah Man. He didn't dare to stay for a moment and rushed to the Shuiyun Imperial Palace. In front of the palace, the Empress stood quietly, waiting for the former to arrive. She already knew what happened in the Eastern Divine World. Even she didn't expect that the Purple Lightning Divine General would sacrifice himself to ignite Ah Man's flame of life. Not long after, phoenix flames filled the void and Ning Chen arrived. Empress. Ning Chen walked over with Ah Man and said, No need to say more. I already know. The Empress stepped forward and reached out to check Ah Man's meridians. A strange look flashed in her eyes. There was indeed life. Although it was very weak, it wasn't as lifeless as before. Ha! Time was of the essence and there was no time to waste. The Empress shouted and the divine essence around her surged into Ah Man's body. Ning Chen stood quietly at the side with his hands clenched. Even if his heart was as tough as steel, he was still very nervous at this moment. In front of the palace, the Empress had done her best to save Ah Man's life. Purple Lightning's sacrifice had finally lit up a glimmer of hope and ignited the flame of life in Ah Man's body. From sunrise to sunset, and then to sunrise, exhaustion flashed in the Empress' eyes. After a full 24 hours, the flame of life in Ah Man's body finally stabilized. The first rays of the morning sun shone on the earth. The Empress stopped and said tiredly, All right, she will wake up after a few days of rest. Ning Chen was shocked when he heard this. He bowed respectfully to the Empress in front of him. Thank you, Empress. No need. The Empress shook her head and said, You should thank Lady Purple Lightning. Without her, even I wouldn't be able to save her. Ning Chen was silent and sighed softly in his heart. Yao Ji, take Lord Ning and Lady Ah Man to rest first, the Empress said faintly. Yes. A goddess Shuiyun walked out and respectfully accepted the order. Lord Ning, please. Yao Ji stepped forward and said politely, Thank you. Ning Chen responded and strode forward to catch up with him. In a quiet courtyard on the east side of the palace, Yao Ji led the two of them over and said, Lord Ning, you and Lady Ah Man can rest here. No one will disturb you. Ning Chen nodded and said, Thank you, Lady Yao Ji. You're welcome. Yao Ji replied, Lord Ning, if you need anything, please tell us. You are the Empress's honored guest, and we will do our best to satisfy you. Ningchen shook his head and replied, I don't need anything for now. Then I will take my leave first. Yao Ji bowed gracefully and turned to leave. Ningchen carried Ah Man back to the room. The room was decorated very simply, but it was also very elegant. There was no one next to him. The little gourd flew out with 2 buds on its head. It looked very amusing. Ningchen placed Ah Man on the bed with an extremely gentle expression. The little gourd flew over and put its little hand on Ah Man's arm to check her pulse. Immortal elder, she's fine, the little gourd said in a childish voice. Ningchen smiled and said, when did you learn how to check her pulse? I learned it a long time ago, the little gourd replied seriously. Ningchen smiled and knocked the little gourd's head. You're really good. The little gourd hugged its little head and pouted. I really know how to do it. Ningchen smiled. Go out and play with Black Fox. The little calabash nodded vigorously, then flew out on its own little calabash. Ningchen held the girl's hand by the bed with an apologetic expression. He had been running around for so many years, but he had gradually neglected the people around him. Within the imperial palace, Yao Ji walked back and bowed towards Empress Shui Yun. Your Majesty. Under the curtain, the Empress looked to the east and said calmly, have you all noticed that the sky of the Eastern Divine Realm still hasn't recovered? Below, the expressions of the heavenly daughters of Shui Yun turned serious. It was indeed so. Perhaps the final calamity hasn't ended. The Empress sighed. Were humans ultimately unable to defeat the heavens? In a small courtyard on the east side of the imperial palace, Ningchen stayed by Ah Man's side all day long and no longer cared about the outside world. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 3 months. In the small courtyard, the withered trees were beginning to sprout. Big Fox, hurry up and run. The little gourd chased Black Fox around the courtyard and urged it. Black Fox was also happy to play with the little gourd and ran around the courtyard. In the room, Ningchen sat by the bed with a wet towel in his hand and wiped Ah Man's face. At this moment, on the bed, Ah Man's finger moved slightly. It was so slight that it was almost undetectable. However, Ningchen, who was completely focused on the girl in front of him, noticed it and his body trembled slightly. Ah Man, are you awake? Ningchen looked at the girl in front of him with empty eyes and asked softly. As soon as he said that, Ah Man's finger moved again. This time, it was very clear. Ningchen smiled and said, if you're awake, hurry up and open your eyes. Don't be naughty anymore. Chapter 1458. In a quiet courtyard on the east side of Water Cloud Imperial Palace, Ah Man, who had slept for 100 years, finally woke up. After 100 years, the marks on Ningchen's face had deepened. His eyes were blind, and he looked much older. On the bed, Ah Man opened her eyes and looked at the man in front of her. A smile appeared on her delicate face as she said softly, you're old. Ningchen chuckled and said gently, I'm old. Do you want to get up and walk around? Ah Man replied softly. Ningchen stepped forward and helped the girl up. He smiled and said, be careful. His tone was calm, without too much emotion, excitement, or ecstasy. There was only extreme gentleness. After sleeping for so many years, Ah Man's body was a little weak. She leaned on Ningchen and stood up. How long have I been asleep? Ah Man felt that her body was weak and asked. More than 100 years. Ningchen smiled and said, have you slept enough? That long? Ah Man stuck out her tongue and said embarrassedly. As the two talked, they came out of the room. In the courtyard, the little gourd was chasing the Black Fox around. It was very lively. Ningchen heard the noise in the courtyard and said, all right, stop for a while. You've been busy for the whole day. The little gourd and the Black Fox stopped when they heard this. Sister Ah Man, you're awake. At this moment, the little gourd saw the girl in front of it. Its face lit up and it flew over. Ah Man reached out and caught the little gourd. She smiled and said, little gourd, what's on your head? The little gourd stretched out its chubby little hand and touched the bud on its head. It smiled embarrassedly and said, hee, I don't know either. We fed it too many treasures. Plus, It absorbed a lot of Khanate chi when we went to the absolute beginning heaven, so a bud grew on its head, Ningchen said with a smile. Man let go of the little gourd and smiled. Go play. The little gourd nodded and flew to play with the black fox. In the courtyard, the black fox bowed to the two and then continued to play with the little gourd. Man, let's go thank the Empress first. She helped a lot to wake you up this time, Ningchen said softly. Okay. Man nodded obediently. Ningchen supported the woman beside him as they walked out of the courtyard. They headed straight for the Water Cloud Emperor Palace. On the way, Ningchen told Wild about everything that had occurred in the past few years, and Wild didn't interrupt and just listened silently. I'm sorry. The man spoke softly after a long time passed. Ningchen laughed involuntarily and said, What's there to be sorry about? What's the point of saying all this between us? Your eyes. Wild's expression dimmed as he looked at the man's blind eyes. I've already cultivated to this level. It doesn't matter whether I have these eyes or not. Ningchen stretched out his hand and rubbed the hair of the girl beside him. He smiled and said, Moreover, ever since I lost my eyes, I discovered that my divine sense and hearing have become sharper. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. Is there no cure? Wild asked softly. Maybe. Ningchen replied, It's just that I've been so busy trying to wake you up that I didn't have time to think about it. Don't worry, when you're better, we'll think of a way together. The man nodded vigorously when he heard this. Beneath the curtains of Raincloud Imperial Palace, Empress Shui Yun sensed the arrival of the two from afar, and a strange look flashed across her eyes. That girl had woken up? She woke up much faster than she had imagined. It seemed that Wild's will to live was quite strong. Otherwise, she wouldn't have woken up so quickly. Was it because she couldn't let go of him? In front of the Imperial Palace, Ningchen helped Wild over and bowed respectfully. Junior Ningchen requests an audience with the Empress. Come in. The Empress's calm voice sounded from within the Imperial Palace. Thank you, Empress. Ningchen thanked her, then helped Wild into the Imperial Palace. In the main hall of the Imperial Palace, the Empress sat high on the phoenix couch. She looked down at the two below and said, Congratulations. Ningchen bowed and said with sincerity, I'm here to thank you in person. It's all thanks to your help that Wild was able to wake up this time. No need to be so polite. Just remember our agreement, the Empress said with an indifferent expression. Of course. Ningchen replied. His empty eyes looked at the girl beside him and said, Wild, bow to the Empress. Wild nodded and bowed respectfully to Empress Shui Yun in the main hall. On the phoenix couch, the Empress stood up. Her figure flashed and appeared in front of the two. The Empress reached out and grabbed Wild's arm. She probed with her divine sense. After a while, she nodded lightly and said, There are no major problems. After this ordeal, Miss Wild's 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls will be more stable. It will be of great help in breaking through to the heaven realm in the future. Thank you, Empress, Wild said softly. Miss Wild's martial talent is rare in the world. If you're willing to stay in the Imperial Palace and become the heavenly daughter of the Shuiyun clan, I can guarantee that within 100 years, your cultivation will definitely reach the 5th realm, the Empress said seriously. No need. Wild shook her head gently. She looked at the man beside her and said gently, I want to accompany him. Hearing this, the Empress's eyes flashed with a strange light. She didn't insist and nodded. Everyone has their own ambitions. I won't force you. Ningchen, before this, you've been so busy reviving Miss Wild that you didn't care about your eyes. Now that Miss Wild has woken up, I advise you to heal your eyes. Otherwise, as time passes, you may never be able to see again. Please guide me, Empress. Ningchen bowed respectfully. At our level of cultivation, unless the physical body is destroyed, it can recover. Therefore, your eyes shouldn't be a problem with the physical body. It's your spirit. The Empress said seriously. When you were injured, it's very likely that your soul was damaged. That's why your eyes haven't recovered for a long time. If you want to regain your sight, you must find a way to heal your spirit. Hearing this, Ningchen frowned and said, "Heal my spirit? Is there such a great medicine in the world?" He had never heard of a great medicine that could heal the spirit. "3 soul grass," the Empress said calmly. "I've only heard that in desireless heaven, there's a divine grass called 3 soul grass that can heal the spirit. However, I don't know whether this is true or not." Desireless heaven. Hearing these 3 words, Ning Chen's expression changed and he unconsciously clenched his fists. The Empress sensed his abnormality and narrowed her eyes. "What, is there something wrong?" "Nothing." Ning Chen suppressed the waves in his heart and said, "I just thought of some past events." The Empress nodded and said, "Desireless heaven is different from the other heavens. It's a place where the living environment is extremely harsh. Only the strong can truly survive in desireless heaven. This is also why there are so many strong people in desireless heaven. With your current strength, if you go there, it's not easy to survive, let alone find 3 soul grass." Hearing about desireless heaven for the first time, Ning Chen's expression was very serious. He asked, "Is desireless heaven that strong?" The Empress nodded and said, "Do you know where desireless heaven ranks among the 9 heavens?" Ning Chen shook his head and said, "I don't know." "Number 1. The Empress said seriously, "There are 9 heavens, and the Lord of Hell is on the 7th. In ancient times, when heaven and earth collapsed, the Lord of Hell separated the 3 heavens above the 7th from this world with his own strength and disappeared without a trace. Therefore, there are only 6 heavens in the 9 heavens today, and desireless heaven is the strongest of the 6 heavens. It can even be said that desireless heaven is now the ruler of the 3 realms." This unprecedented statement was shocking. Ning Chen heard the Empress's words, and his expression completely froze. Was desireless heaven really that strong? "I suggest you break through to the 5th realm as soon as possible. Only then can you have enough power to protect yourself, or cultivate a powerful life-saving technique," the Empress said calmly. Ning Chen fell silent. He had life-saving techniques, but if desireless heaven was as dangerous as the Empress said, then his life-saving technique was just a drop in the bucket. "I can teach you a life-saving technique." At this time, the Empress said faintly, "You saw it when you fought with me this time." Ning Chen's expression turned serious. "What price do I have to pay?" "Kunwu," the Empress said calmly. "If you leave the God realm and go to desireless heaven, Kunwu won't be important to you." Ning Chen thought for a moment and nodded gently. "I'll give you another suggestion." The Empress's mouth curved slightly. "The rulers of the God realm today all have their own special abilities. I, the Demon Lord, and the Rising Sun Dragon God are no exception. What I can teach you, those 2 can too. It depends on whether you have the ability to learn it." Ning Chen was shocked when he heard this. "You have 3 bodies, human, phoenix, and demon. It just so happens that all 3 of your bodies can cultivate our abilities. Why don't you give it a try?" As she spoke, an incomprehensible madness flashed in the Empress's eyes. She continued, "If you can learn all of our abilities, even if you go to desireless heaven alone in the future, no one can hurt you." Ning Chen's heart pounded at the Empress's words. He had never thought of this before. It was too crazy. "How about it? Do you dare to give it a try?" The Empress gathered her thoughts and looked at the young man in front of her. Ning Chen recovered from his shock and said in a low voice, "Thank you for your advice, Your Majesty. I know what to do." After the Empress heard this, a radiant smile appeared on her beautiful face. She said, "That's right. One has to learn how to make use of one's own greed in order to grow to the greatest extent. I look forward to the day when you return from your studies and give me a big surprise." Ning Chen cupped his fists. The aura of the Phoenix demon swept out from his body. The next moment, the 2 bodies turned and walked out of the Imperial Palace. They flew toward the Buddhist realm and Nanjiang respectively. Inside the Imperial Palace, Ning Chen's main body summoned Kunwu and offered it to the Empress with both hands. The Empress took Kunwu and glanced at it. Then she waved her hand and sent Kunwu to the Imperial Palace. In an instant, strange lights rose around the Imperial Palace. The entire Imperial Palace broke free from the shackles of the God realm and became an independent world. Ning Chen felt something and a strange expression flashed across his face. Kanwa could be used like this. Empress Shui Yun was truly a genius. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.